down in your neck of the woods, enjoy.
Yeah, what's going on, party people in the place to be? I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? It's Friday night, and as always, we pulled up by the Bodega, and I'm with my homies in the place to be, and we're gonna start off by bringing in the hometown hero, Mr. True ID himself, Adam Coleman. What's going on, sir?
As I'm adjusting my video, my camera here.
Yeah, I caught you off guard.
Yo, man, y'all know what it is. The hometown hero, the real Adam Coleman, True ID Apologetics in the building. Saying glad to be here at the Bodega, man. What's good with you, bro?
Ain't nothing, man. We're just trying to maintain and survive this dystopian world that we're now been thrust in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The regular. You know, of course, all the way from where everything's bigger at, Texas, Mr. MJ Jackson. What's going on, sir?
I'm good, man. Bigger don't necessarily mean smarter or better. So, pray for us.
And we'll get to that in a minute.
Right.
And then we're going to shoot, I guess, somewhat Midwest, kind of, sort of, from Texas. I don't know if that's the correct trajectory, but we got all the way from Dayton, Ohio, Mr. CMB, the ambassador. What's going on with you, sir?
What's good, people? Everything all right, man? I'm doing all right, brothers. How about yourself?
We are chilling, man. We are chilling. You know what I mean? And as always, please share the link. We need as many people. We need all the party people in the place to be right now, so we could just have a good time, just kicking back and relaxing and getting our casual Jesus on, so to speak. You know what I mean? And we're gonna also, I need you to like, share, and subscribe. All right. So with that being said, there's some business I would like to attend to with you people before we really get into what we're about to get into. And hold on. Let me make sure I present this. All right. Can we see that? Yes, we can. So yes, it is. Okay. Am I doing this right? Okay, good. So, okay, there we go. I was wondering where that was. All right. So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is the Bodega Bible Talk. But first, a quick shout out to all my Patreon members. Thank you so much for showing love and being there for me. Whether you're 25 or $3, you're equal in my sight. You guys are amazing. I'm just so floored that people are willing to just back me up. You know what I mean? It's such an encouragement, that you guys have been there for me in this manner. Putting your money where your mouth is. And I think that's amazing. So thank you so much to all my Patreons. You know who you are. You know what I mean? And speaking of Patreons, for those who are my patrons, on June 1st at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will have our own mental health spirituality Zoom session with licensed independent marriage and family therapist Kyle Spears. This will be only for Patreon members. So if you want to be a patron, I just put the link in the chat, and please join up because this is just for the patrons. This will not be on YouTube or Facebook. This will be a private Zoom meeting. I've had this brother on earlier before. Amazing guy. A lot of people told me this is one of their favorite episodes that we've done. So we're bringing him back, and he's right now working on a special class just for the patrons. So I told you that I'll do that velvet rope for you guys, and I was not playing. All right. Also, this coming Monday, May 25th, we're gonna have Dr. Michael Heizer, and we're gonna talk about the unseen realm of apologetics. That's May 25th. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right? It's something I'm very much looking forward to. I know you are as well. This is going to be huge. And of course, in June, we're going to have the Bodega Bible Talk, Bodega Ladies Edition.
Hey.
Right? That's
Okay.
right.
Okay.
That's right. We're going to have the ladies come by. And it's going to be a panel of just the ladies. and they're gonna chop it up, Bodega Bible style. You know what I mean? So I know a lot of us are looking forward to that. So just want to share that with you guys. And I want to say what's up.
Can I do a Tyler Perry and show up in looking like Medea and get in on that or
it's
no?
Not that kind of ministry, bro. It's not that kind of ministry.
Adam, you said it. You said it. I was thinking it.
We got Trust and Believe in the building. We got Rock Speed checking in. We got Phil Fox checking in. We got Thomas White. We got Titus 2. What up? What up? She's gonna be one of the Bodega ladies.
Okay.
D New is gonna be one of the Bodega ladies.
Right, all right.
You know what I mean? That's right. That's right. We here. I'm glad you guys are here. Please make sure you share and subscribe if you haven't already. And coming in, the Intercontinental Champion of Urban Apologetics, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Featherstone. What's going on, bro?
Is this your king?
Dang, bro. Really? Early?
Oh, out the gate.
Early?
Out the gate.
He got the fake fruit of Islam surrounding him.
The Fugazi fruit.
Hey, that was the fruit of the loom of Islam.
The fruit of the loom.
Got the goons. Those goons Umar Johnson was talking about.
You guys are terrible.
Oh, snap.
Oh man.
I love it, man. I love it.
Umar Johnson about to get it tonight. So
Yeah,
Oh, he gonna take
put it
that
out
Don't
there.
jump the gun. Don't jump the gun.
You got to take that L. Yeah.
Yeah, for
We're
sure.
gonna definitely, we got.
he about to get jumped tonight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Man, but as always, I like to check in with you guys when it comes to this Corona situation. So we're gonna start with Texas. What in the world's wrong with your people in Texas, bro? What in the world, bro?
The sad part about it is the more that I listen to these people, I'm like, okay, is Paula White giving Donald Trump advice regarding opening up these churches and stuff like that? Is he getting his advice from a word of faither? Because I, for the most part, I take most of my conservative Christians, whether it be white or black, most of my conservatives who are not word of faith, to be very logical people, also to respect, scientific studies and things like that. But I mean, somehow, some way, look, I'm not saying that you got to shut life down or nothing like that. We all got to try to work. We all got to try to make the best of this bad situation. But to pretend and think that you can wish this thing away and just make everything go normal because you're opening stuff back up, you're crazy. And what you're going to do is put our hospitals in a bad position, and you're just not thinking clearly, and you're just not being responsible. And so I take an issue with our governor down here. It's just irresponsible to me. It's reckless.
Right. And of course, jumping into the bodega is Apologist in Detroit. What's going on, sir?
OH.
Yo.
You. So we're just checking in, man, on the Corona thing. What's going on by your neck of the woods when it comes to the Corona?
Our governor, she basically is keeping things, majority of things locked down. I think she just opened plants like Ford. We Motor City, right? So Ford, GM, Chrysler. We got a lot of.
Fix your mic, bro. You kind of chippy.
I don't know what's going on, but I said we Motor City, so we got like Ford, Chrysler, General Motors, a lot of manufacturing. All that's been shut down. So she just allowed that to be opened back up. It's still required to wear a mask out in public. And most everything else is still locked down other than grocery stores, no malls, no other Kohl's, other shopping stores. They're all closed and stuff. So she's slow.
Okay.
But, she's trying to get things. She's trying to make it to where she doesn't have to shut anything back down when she opens it up.
Okay. Yeah, Trust and Believe says, it's crazy in Texas. So that's two people right there confirming that.
It is.
So what's going on in VA, Mr. Coleman?
Yeah, man. So right at the beginning of May, it looked like we had, hit that curve and was going down, but then we had a spike right after that. And so, it seems like they've kind of gone back and forth on the date when we're supposed to be opening back up. But we're one of those states, where the government has been willing to, hold off on opening back up. I mean, he's under a lot of pressure, but he's kind of been standing firm for the most part up until this past weekend, actually, because you had a lot of folks in my area out here in Virginia Beach who was just bucking. So he was just like, well, since y'all bucking, then, hey, whatever. We just going to open up sooner than had planned. So right. I think they're going for May 28th now. I think that's the date. It was originally June 10th. I think they're doing May 28th. And, but it's for me in my house, we staying at the crib. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, one thing that I was saying to one of my homeboys is that really, the whole world is undergoing a type of crisis, you know what I'm saying? And from a mental health standpoint, a crisis is when you're in a situation that your normal resources for handling things have been stretched beyond their limit, if you will. You know what I'm saying? So you're out of your element, so to speak, to be able to navigate whatever it is that you're dealing with. And I think that's what's going on. So, legally speaking, in terms of our systems and so forth, like we're trying to handle something that, is a part of this fallenness and brokenness of the world. And this coronavirus is really showing us how limited man is in terms of managing the brokenness of the world. So I think that plays out in a lot of different ways. You know what I'm saying? So, we just, me, my wife, our kids, we're healthy. Everybody's good. We camping out here at the crib, man. We were just talking a minute ago, just like how this is, allow for more, family time and that kind of stuff. So, there's some things that we kind of gain, during this corona journey. We want to keep going, man. So, hey. That's where we at.
Some people don't feel so positive about being closer to family more often than not.
Yeah, true.
So
that's true. Yeah,
it's a good thing for you. That's definitely a blessing.
Yeah.
Because there's cats out here right now just
scrambling
on each other.
Scrambling. They don't know what to do. Kids driving them up the wall. Husband and wife is at each other. I mean, I'm laughing, but I mean, it's real serious for a lot of folks, man. And we definitely ought to be prayerful about that for sure.
I know Alfredo put out with his Patreon that he's going to be doing some marriage counseling and stuff like that. So
you might save somebody's marriage, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, me and my wife have been doing that for a minute. So now we're not licensed. It's strictly amateur night. But I've been married now for 16 years, happily married, and we try to do it the Jesus way. I mean, we waited until our honeymoon to consummate the relationship. You know what I mean? So we try to do it. You know what I mean?
Love to hear that. Yeah.
So whatever little experience I have, I'm more than happy to share with the patrons.
Did the Patreon get a prayer call for $9.99? Did they get a prayer water or something like that? Or
that's the $100 patrons.
That's coming.
That's the $100 patrons.
It's only a matter. It's only a matter of time for you wake up in the middle of the night. BK Apologetics is on BT.
So that anointed soap and water straight from the Jordan River.
Like Kearney Thomas. And
I was about to say the same thing.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Does anybody else have more than 16 years?
No, I just came up on 11 this year, man. So yeah, I can't say I got more than 16. Yeah.
October will be 10 for me.
I'm in my second year.
Oh,
going on 12. All right.
My man Alfredo got 16 bars for y'all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, good times. The man says he experiments with us before he goes live. Hey, it is what it is. You know what I mean? But going to CMB, what's going on in Dayton, man? Let's get the report.
Same old, bro. We got Governor DeWine and Dr. Acton holding it down for us. It's the slow way, but it's the show way. I'm gonna say it like that. You know what I mean? Right. So the old things we'll know I'm talking about. It's a very slow rollout. They're being cautious. And actually, y'all ever seen The Master of Disguise with Dana Carvey, that movie?
Yep.
And he's like, you're not turtle enough for your turtle club. Yeah, he looks like that, right? That's what the governor looks like. Right? And he's super meek, super mild, you know what I'm saying? But like one of the reporters, like I think it was like last week, something like that, was, well, where are we gonna open up? And I mean, like he just went in, he's like, and I say so. All right. And it was good and healthy that you saw the humanity come out of that. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people want to see, we need to stimulate this economy. And it's like money. but what about the human aspect of it? Human resources are the best resources, the only resources that really matter. And so if we're not taking care of our people, right, who's going to be able to work if everybody's dead? You know what I'm saying? Who's stimulating the economy? If people are sick and there's a ridiculous strain on the healthcare. So that was very wise of him. So far, so good. It is annoying, because like now I was out and about, everything was all good. I had an easy commute to work, and now the traffic's back, so I'm not pleased. But God be with us all. We're doing good. So slow and steady. Wins the race.
Cool. Chris, are you wearing your headphones?
I am not wearing headphones.
Yeah, could you? Because I'm starting to hear a little
You still hear it?
latency. 1 2 1 2. Let me see. Yeah, I don't hear it right now. Cool.
I had a little fan on. I worked out and took a shower right before I came on. That's why I was late. I had this little fan on. That's why I had my hat
No, it's
on.
not the fan. It's the it's people's vocals. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I'm hearing it coming out of your speaker.
Okay, let me.
So, do you have any headphones at all?
Do you want us to mute if we're not talking? Do you want us to?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I wish you didn't have to, but yeah, that'd be kind of cool. But if you got your headphones, there shouldn't be a problem.
True.
It really should. So, but Phil Fox got jokes. We got one of them BK hats won by the BK himself for $9.99 and $35.99 shipping. Man, that hat better be amazing, boy. Man, Mr. Featherstone, how about your neck of the woods? Because you're similar. You're kind of close to CMB, right? Or
Yep, but Dayton's about depends on where you at in Columbus and where you at in Dayton. It can range from an hour to a little over 2. So, yeah, man, good. I mean, DeWine's the man. He's doing a really good job. The 31st is when everything opens up here in Ohio. 26th is when the gyms open up, brother, and I'm really excited about it. Yeah. I'm super pumped about the gyms opening back up on the 26th. But I mean, I work in mental health, man. So I take it from both ends. Like, I get it. Wisdom is the principal thing, man. Listen, be responsible. If you're coughing, if you're sneezing, if you got a fever, stay home. But I'm one of those people, man, that I work in mental health, and so I look at it from a mental health standpoint too, and how suicides and domestic violence numbers have increased too. So it's kind of like a catch-22. You know what I mean? I think wisdom and balance is the key, and be responsible. And this whole thing, man, I tell people, I don't after if all this subsides and there's no new cases, people are just irresponsible. And so another virus, something crazy will happen again in 10 years, and there'll be some crazy. I mean, we've seen it. We saw it with SARS, we saw it with anthrax, we saw it with H1N1, swine flu. You know what I mean? So people are just irresponsible, and they don't wash their hands, and then all types of infections spread, and then voila, here we go. So be responsible, folks. Be responsible.
Absolutely. So in New York, right? So this is Memorial Day weekend, right? I'm just everything's a blur, right? It is. So they're gonna open up the beaches in New York, but it's gonna be at half capacity. You gotta still do the social distancing, and you gotta wear masks, which is weird because when you go into the water, what happened to your mask?
Yeah. Sad.
So unless they're telling people they can't go in the water, which is going to be hard to stop people, you're going to let them on the beach, but they can't touch the water. I don't know. That's.
Someone's in Florida now that I know, and she said they're actually doing pretty good practicing social distancing on the beach. I think she's in Daytona.
Okay.
So yeah, she said
not in Texas. Not
in Texas. There's beaches in Texas.
Let me tell you.
It's like not Virginia either. You burned
way down there close to Galveston, things like that. But sometimes I read the newspaper comments and things like that, and sometimes the Fort Worth Police Department will post like some type of Crime Stopper or something like that. So they went and broke up like a party of like maybe 60 people. And I'm reading through the comments, and conservatives or Republicans, I can say it more sharply, love
don't
the
say them
police.
both because I'm a conservative, but I really don't go.
That's fine. I'm gonna say certain Republicans in the chat was like, Fort Worth PD, y'all about to mess up. Look, we love the police, but y'all can't be enforcing this stuff. Don't tell me you're gonna lock somebody up over that. Almost 70 people in a residence. Like, come on, man. Look, stuff is opening back up, but you can't be stupid. These people. I was talking to a dude at GNC. I think it's being overblown. I said, you know what? I said, you always say that until you catch it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I look, when people tell me that, hey, I'm not feeling good or whatnot, we just saw what happened to one of the greatest apologists but behind a disease. And so these diseases and illnesses and things like that, we have to try to take care of the one body that God give us. Christians should know this. You have a responsibility to take care of your body.
Patrick Ewing just got hospitalized. Y'all hear about that?
What?
Yes, sir.
I just saw it.
Nah, I ain't hear that.
Who?
I heard that tonight. Yeah.
Hey, that's crazy. Yo, New York messing up, man.
Who?
Patrick Ewing.
Oh wow, he got the corona.
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
He's kind of up there too, right?
Yeah, he should be in his 60s now, late 50s, early 60s.
It's not a game, man.
60s yet, man. Right.
That's crazy.
It's not a game, man.
But speaking
57.
of
57.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew he was around the same age as Jordan.
Speaking of Ravi Zacharias, we've lost one of the greatest orators of the gospel recently.
Facts.
We knew it was coming, unfortunately, but it still doesn't block the blow of his passing. So I'm just gonna let you guys just speak about your thoughts on the legacy of Ravi Zacharias. Anyone?
All right, well, I'll go first, I guess. Man, so a lot of people know my story. About almost 9 years, I was a part of the prosperity gospel movement, and in 2007, it was a crossroads in my life, and it was one of those things that I was either going to go all the way out in the world or I was going to stay in the church. But my view of church was very jaded, very, very jaded. And praise the Lord, I had some good Christian friends, and I was like, you know what, man, I can't shake. I was a skeptic in high school, and I became a Lutheran. I was raised a Lutheran, became a skeptic, and then was a part of the prosperity gospel movement for almost 9 years, and then left the church for a little bit and was like teetering with skepticism again because I was so hurt by the church, the prosperity gospel movement. And thankfully, I had Christian friends, is why I always advocate, Christians have a core Christian friends. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give this Christianity a try again. And I started to dive into apologetics in 2007, and I was just looking at stuff. And John Ankerberg was one of the first people that I heard and knew about. And so Ankerberg would always have Walter Martin on his show. Like Walter Martin is like the man to me, and then that led to like Norman Geisler, and then I discovered. I was having a talk with somebody, and later on, around within a year or so of my apologetic journey, year or two, I discovered Ravi Zacharias, and he was really, really pivotal to sharpening my apologetic and really getting me into just passion of apologetics and understanding why it's so important to be bold. Him and Frank Turek, just amazing people, bold, willing to go to any college campuses with no agenda, Q&A. That's what, to me, when I look at Ravi Zacharias, he is a template of why every single Christian should read their Bible and should follow 1 Peter 3:15 to always have an answer to those who ask. And he was a model person to exhibit that, going in college campuses, talking to atheist after skeptic after agnostic, people even being disrespectful with them. Always had a poise about him, and never got to meet him. Unfortunately, never got to meet him. But I share this in my video on my page. Real quick story about Ravi. I got my master's degree from Liberty University in 2013 in theological studies, and I heard that year Ravi was actually speaking on Saturday. He was the head speaker for the night before, and I was like, oh yeah. So my wife and I had a little bit of gas and a little bit of money, and I was like, you know what? I'm driving from Columbus to Lynchburg. It was like 7.5 hours. I was like, I'm going to see Ravi, because I was teetering, like, should I go? Should I drive? Should I walk? Should I not? I heard Ravi was speaking, and I was like, okay, I'm going. So with a little bit of money and a little bit of gas, we got it. The transmission blew about an hour to 2 hours away from the place. And so we had to wait hours and hours calling people, try to get money to get a rental, had to wait for the rental to come to the freeway. It blew out in the freeway.
Try to get money to get a rental.
And so we finally got to do it. I was devastated that I didn't get to see him. I probably would have met him too. I didn't get to see him that Saturday night. And so we only had like 3 hours of sleep. I had to get up for my graduation. And then finally, I thought that I had to graduate. I thought I was graduating at 10 o'clock, but I was actually in seminary. The seminary graduation was like 3 or so, like that. And then as I was getting my cap and gown, just frantic and chaotic, I heard a Ravi Zacharias in the background during the grad. I was like, oh, so he was actually speaking at the commencement ceremony too. And so I just stopped what I was doing, and I had that live experience for a little bit. I caught a portion of it, and I had to continue with my graduation stuff. But that was my Ravi Zacharias experience, and truly blessed by this man. And like I said in my video, man, he was 74, but his legacy, if the Lord allows, his legacy is going to go far beyond his years. And that is a key of a true legend. Like, we can still talk about Martin Luther King, 52 years after his death, and that's what Ravi Zacharias is going to be like.
Cool. What else would like to share?
I'll go next. Okay.
Oh, okay. No, go ahead, brother. Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. I'll just say this. I was for some of you guys already know this, but I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada. And Dr. Zacharias, his ministry, not started solely in Canada, but it was a proving ground, a breeding ground for RZIM. So before they moved to Atlanta, I think. So that was one of the things that, even though I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, and SDAs don't hardly listen to anybody that's not SDA. Everybody listened to Ravi Zacharias. Everybody did. And just kind of like this week, since the passing was announced and so forth, the people and friends and family, we all took it hard. It's almost like a homegrown hero, to kind of listen to that. Before I even knew what apologetics was, listening to this great man of God just really speak and really just defend the faith and this understanding his relationship with God. You could tell it was real. It wasn't manufactured. It wasn't. Well, what will the neighbors think? It wasn't like that kind of superficial thing. It never came across that way. It came across as genuine. And so I thank God for that. For that, the little nuggets kind of having him in the formative years before I ever knew what apologetics was. Now that I'm older and engaging in this kind of thing, having his books on my shelf, it really makes me glad to know that, I would never be able to step in his shoes and walk in his shoes, but we can still stay on the same path and continue what has come down from the beginning, from Christ through the apostles, and now we're still here defending the faith in 2020 until Christ returns. So thank God for that.
Cool. Adam, you want to share a few things?
Yeah, man. I'm really not trying to be overly dramatic, you know what I mean? But when Robbie passed, it was especially emotional for me because so I was introduced to Ravi Zacharias. Well, actually, the first time I heard of Ravi was through the Cross movement, as a matter of fact. Tonic mentioned, it's at the end of a track, like Tonic mentioned Ravi Zacharias, and I didn't know who he was talking about, you know what I'm saying, at the time. And then like somewhere around there, my dad actually gave me Jesus Among the Gods, or however it's termed or whatever, Ravi Zacharias' book. And that was like my first introduction to his work, and so my dad gave me that book, and that is actually through my dad that I really came to into apologetics in general. And so, my dad was a huge Ravi Zacharias fan. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he went to one of those like week-long seminar type things that Ravi RZIM would have in Oxford. He attended one of those. My mom went as well. And so what's wild is, I mean, me getting into apologetics, you know what I'm saying? Like my dad associated apologetics with Ravi Zacharias. I'm saying that was his dude, you know what I mean? And so, make a long story short, unfortunately, and I mean, I think most people who follow my channel know that my dad, they're Jesus Among Other Gods, right? Most people who follow my channel know that, like, I've talked about it before. Like, my dad passed away a couple of years ago, and what's wild is that the week before he passed, my dad called me because he had just read some of the articles I'd written for Free Thinking Ministries. I had sent them to him like a while ago, and then he finally got around to reading them because he wasn't all that tech savvy, but he was finally able to print them out or whatever. And he was just ecstatic, man. He was just encouraging me, like, "Oh man, your writing is awesome," and all this kind of stuff. And he just kept saying over and over again, like, "Man, just keep going, man. You're gonna be on stage with Robbie and them, man. You're gonna be on stage with Robbie and them." It's like he was just like really excited about what I was doing. And then, that was the last conversation me and my dad had. I mean, he passed away about 5 days later, about a week later, And, so I've, since then I've used that conversation as a motivator. I mean, that's really like fueled me to, continue to do what it is that I do, And so I always kind of had in mind, like, man, I mean, hopefully one day I'll either work with Ravi or, one of his events or something like that. And I just looked at Ravi as being kind of part of that fuel as well. It was part of like my last conversation with my dad. So, on the one hand, like when Robbie passed, it was like, you got to respect his legacy, you know what I mean? But then it kind of tied into my own process of navigating, my dad passed a couple of years ago. It brought up a lot of stuff with that, you know what I mean? But just ultimately, man, like Chris was saying, man, I mean, to say that Robbie was a legend is like an understatement. I mean, to have the kind of legacy and impact he had, man. I mean, goodness knows, that's one of those. He's just one of those like once in a lifetime type of dudes. I mean, he truly was like the Billy Graham of apologetics. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have a lot of people who've got the head knowledge, a lot of people who have the heart. But he was able to put the package together in a way that you really don't see. He had that kind of pastoral aspect to him. You know what I'm saying? You could really see that he cared about people, and he was sharp as a tack, man. I mean, he really was. I mean, he was the total package, man. He was the total package. And so, matter of fact, I will share this. Interesting enough, like, and I shared this on a video on my page as well. But the first apologetics event that I ever attended in person was a RZIM event. You know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, shout out to Canada, I guess, again, because the speakers at it was Stuart McAllister and Andy Bannister, who I believe is from Canada. I think Andy Bannister was running the Canadian RZIM or whatever for a while. So anyway, it was funny is I was just getting into apologetics. I was just hyped to be in the building. I was the first one in the door. And I'm like, I'm sure there's not gonna be no black people in here, but I don't even care. I'm just gonna roll. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna represent. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I was thinking. And so I get in there, and at the time I'd been listening to a lot of Alistair McGrath. And it's like I said in the video, I kind of had my Alistairs mixed up because Stuart McAllister, who's one of the speakers for RZIM, I thought like I was looking for Alistair McGrath. I thought Stuart McAllister was the same person. And so when I walk in, like I said, I'm the first person in there, and I'm talking to Stuart McAllister, who's the main speaker that night. And I'm like, yo, man, this is my first time coming to an event, and I just can't wait to meet, Stuart McAllister, man. I'm excited to meet him. And he looked at me kind of weird. And then we just kind of kept talking. I wondered why he looked at me strange, but it's because I was talking to Stuart McAllister and didn't even realize it. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm picturing Alistair McGrath, and so I didn't realize that I was talking to Stuart McAllister until he got up on stage and introduced himself. I was feeling kind of dumb then, but he was mad cool about it though. And so I'm just trying to pick his brain. I'm like, what do I need to do to get started to be an apologist? Do I need to go back to school and get get my master's in something or get my PhD? What do I need to do? He just said simply like, look, just bloom where you're planted. And I did. That's what I did. I went back to the crib. I said, all right, I talked to my wife, hey, I'm doing something. I don't know what it's gonna be. I'm doing something. I'm gonna bloom where I'm planted. And then, shortly thereafter, I, launched the True ID podcast, and that's, kind of led into everything I'm doing now. So I said all that to say is that, if you don't have RZIM, you might not have True ID Apologetics. He was really, so Ravi was just really instrumental in my life in more ways than one, man. So, can't say enough about him. I mean, excellent communicator. And one thing I will say this before I give somebody else a shot too. Is that he kept the gospel the main thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure if this quote is attributable to somebody else, but I heard him say it. He talked about how the gospel is the steak and the apologetics is the seasoning. You know what I'm saying? I heard him say that in the speech one time. And I'm like, man, that's where it's at right there. You know what I'm saying? And he just really carried himself in a way that the gospel was always in the forefront, and he brought his apologetics bag with him. So hey, he's a legend, man. Period. He's a legend. One of the all-time greats. One of the greatest ever do it. One of them. Yeah.
Facts. True indeed. MJ, what do you think?
Yeah. Like I said, I was largely introduced to the deep world of apologetics by a good friend of mine, Chris Gibson. Adam, you and Chris Gibson got the same birthday, bro.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Tell him I said happy birthday, man. We just passed it. Yeah.
Yep. So, and the dude that he always kept bringing up was, you ever heard of Ravi Zacharias? And I had, but sometimes you can get so used to Western forms of academia and even Western forms of apologetics that at the time you fail to appreciate a person like Ravi. So what happened with me, I just started reading a couple of his books. Well, 3 of them. One was The Logic of God. So I read through it, and then I purchased the audio version of it, and it was him. He did his own audio reading, and to just listen to this man expound on these subjects and how he was able to kind of like a Francis Schaeffer. In a sense where Francis Schaeffer was able, and I'm not trying to compare the two, but Francis Schaeffer was also able to take certain things from poetry, the arts, logic, reason, and theology and weave them together into a wonderful tapestry to meet different types of thinkers where they were. And then also another thing about Ravi and what makes the way that he did apologetics, he was doing evangelism was always at the forefront. Y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, my bad. Somebody hit that mute. I guess it sounded different. Evangelism was always at the forefront, and I'm 33 years old, but I consider myself a young apologist. And one thing that I have to remember is, even when we up on the woke Christian chat group, is that, hey, ultimately we want these people to come to Jesus, not just trying to, we tear down arguments, but we don't tear the person down.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And Ravi was so masterful at answering the question and taking apart the argument, but he'll be right there to love on the person as he's addressing, either a bad argument or whatever they might say. And it was just so much that we can continue to learn from Ravi's example. And another thing is Ravi was respected even by reformed cats, even by presuppositional cats, and that don't come easy because they're usually always critiquing everybody. But what can you say about him? He was about his father's business at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And what about you, Dr. Detroit? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
You sound like you're in a Wendy's drive-thru. What the heck? What happened?
Well, you told me to put the headphones on. Does it really sound funny, or can you hear me?
What do you guys think? How do you think he sounds?
Yeah, we can hear you, but it does sound like you talking to the client and you about to order a Baconator or something. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna take these off.
Yeah, take
The
them off.
Baconator, though. Okay.
He said a Baconator.
That's not kosher, brother. You're off.
man.
You're off.
Yeah.
Pastor Pork Chop just came out of me. Excuse me.
Okay, now we don't hear you at all, Detroit.
You're muted, Chris.
Still can't hear you, bro.
So yeah, he was he was always been one of those people that's like, he's like one of those guys. Like I've throughout my once I got into apologetics, there were like different phases that I went through. So phase one was like I was listening to the Bible Answer Man broadcast all the time. Second, phase two was like I was listening to Greg Coco's Stand to Reason podcast all the time. Phase three, I was listening to William Lane Craig's podcast, Reasonable Faith, all the time. But like at all times, kind of in the background, I was listening to Let My People Think, Ravi Zacharias. He was like kind of this supplemental podcast that I would listen to in addition to like the primary podcast I was listening to. So like ironically, he ends up being the one that I listened to the most, in spite of the fact that he was never it was never the podcast that I was primarily out to listen to. It was just one of the handful of podcasts that I was kind of, absorbing and drawing from. I listened to his podcast until his like itinerant speakers began to kind of be the primary speakers on his podcast, and then they kind of fell off. I hadn't gotten into them as much. I did have the chance to meet him once. He was here in Michigan when Abdu Murray, who's like an apologist from here in Michigan, when he joined RZIM that year, Ravi came and was the speaker for his annual fundraising banquet, and I would always go to his annual banquet. And but I was just like, I was taken by the fact because he's had silver hair forever. I never knew how old he was. he always seemed to have all this juice, all this energy to engage with all these people. And I actually found myself feeling sorry that he was being so overwhelmed. Like the line to talk to him was so long. My boy Brandon, who works for RZIM now, like if you see the picture that he posted in his for his like kind of memorial the day that Ravi passed, that was the actual event. Like I was there at that event also. Me and him, would be hanging out and talking and stuff. And he went up and got in line, and I was like, I can't, I just feel bad for the guy. He's like, it's like 300-400 people here, and everybody's standing in line. He's gonna be there forever. So that was kind of my that was kind of how he impacted me personally. He always exuded this, this wisdom, this maturity, which sounds weird because, you would think that most of the people that we listen to, would have that same characteristic. And not to say that others didn't, but, I guess to say that Ravi's was unique. His was undeniable. His was ever present. It was always this graciousness and kindness to him. That really, in some sense, kind of set him apart, his demeanor. Also, I remember distinctly this, what other Christian was invited to speak at the Mormon temple? here's a cult. Here's a religion that recognizes that it is seen as a cult by Christianity, yet they invite Ravi Zachariah to come and speak. Only Christian that I know of that's ever spoken at the main Mormon temple in Utah. Not only did he get to speak, here's a man that was uncompromising and graciously spoke the gospel in a somewhat hostile environment. So yeah, I've always had this immense sense of this immense appreciation for the graciousness, the way that he went about being an apologist. I've been to a bunch of conferences, and sometimes, you can tell speakers get that fatigue and they might get overwhelmed. They might get a little short. They're tired. They're human. I respect that. I give it that. It just was weird that this guy who seemingly was older than all these people never had that. He just always had this juice and this graciousness about him. So yeah, that's kind of my personal, take and memory and the thoughts that come to mind when I think about the impact of Ravi Zachariah has had. He is, in my opinion, I can't think of another Christian in this modern era that was kind of like a church statesman like him. Maybe the last was Norman Geisler, who passed a few years ago. But yeah, outside of that, I just don't think of a lot of people that just stand out to me as world renowned, that has accomplished so much and maintained that graciousness in spite of the fact that he was an icon and a person that was probably pulled in a lot of directions off.
A fun fact was he and Dr. William Lane Craig were classmates.
That's
at
right.
Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, and they were also neighbors. They lived next door to each other, and Dr. Norman Geisler was their professor.
Wow.
So it's funny how God's providence works that way. And we look at what Ravi Zacharias went on to do, and I read the tribute that Dr. William Lane Craig wrote to him, and it was very, very touching. And it's beautiful to see. I asked my wife, what will they say about us when we gone? What will they say about you? And it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I want to say too. Actually, I hadn't thought about it until Chris said something just now. But I mean, you made a great point about in terms of just that energy he had, and for I don't know how long he had, but I know he had a pretty serious back injury for a good while. He had surgery, and it was like, I think a rod or some pins or something like that in his back, and so whatever, something like that. And so for him to be able to keep up, the schedule that he had and all the engagements and stuff, and flying here, flying there, in the midst of injuries, he never complained about it, that I'm aware of, and to be able to still put in work like that. I mean, that's some real OG stuff right there. I mean, like, you got to respect it, man. You got to. And another thing I want to say too is I don't know if our generation has a better storyteller than Ravi Zacharias. You know what I'm saying? Like if you listen to one of his speeches, you're gonna hear about Malcolm Muggeridge. You're gonna hear some G.K. Chesterton. You're gonna hear some, you know what I mean? And you're gonna hear that poem about the guy who was living under the bridge, on the Thames. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna hear all that, and you can hear it 100 times, and it's riveting every single time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, every single time he told it as if it was his first time telling it to an audience. And that's, I mean, just as a storyteller, being able to weave in poetry and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the man was a masterful communicator. And I can't think of any other apologist that can really match that. But I think it's a lesson for all of us, though. There's more than one way to be impactful with apologetics. It doesn't have to always be like some 3-step syllogism or just kind of laying out the, your illest, argument, whatever, but using stories and just engaging all parts of the person in order to really provide a robust defense of the faith. I mean, you got to respect it, man. He's a legend, man.
And not only was he telling stories during his actual lecture, but that's how he did his Q&A as well.
Yeah.
He would refute you with stories.
Yeah, that's tough. I'm like, that's so tough.
Everybody can't do that.
Everybody can't do it. Yeah.
For most of us, what we would do is, well, here's these scriptures. here's these sources, here's this peer-reviewed article, right? Now he will do the same thing, but he will start with, well, I remember when I was having tea and crumpets with the Prince of Zaire, and the Prince said, Ravi, and I'm like, and then he goes right in, and it's like, but again, it's all about the story, right? Whether it's marketing or the gospel, they always tell you that it's about the story. If they don't like the story, they're not going to stay around.
Man, look, that man was so well traveled. If he told a story about being in Wakanda, I would have believed it. Like, some kind of way. Sat down with the child one day. I'm like, hey, if you say it, I believe it, bro.
He did a really good job with melting kind of presuppositional combat from his opponents when people would ask him questions, and he would go in 5-7 minutes and tell a story, and by that time they're like melted away and just ears are perking ready to hear what they said. And I was just really spending time in prayer and just kind of reflecting on Ravi. And one of the things that I just really gathered from his life as in general is with the apologetics community, we tend to do apologetics of the head, but he does apologetics of the head and of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a life lesson that we can all learn as apologists, that it's not just apologetics of the head, it's apologists of the head and the heart. And he did a very, very good job with that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He did, man. Yeah.
And now, we have to, take on the banner, right? And we got to carry on the tradition of being these great storytellers for the gospel. Mm-hmm. And we've been forced to take that story almost exclusively now to the interwebs, right? Mm. And I saw this article from the Barmer Institute, and it says here that Barner asks American adults about how they discuss spirituality online. Through posts, comments, and profiles, many Christians believe that technology and digital interactions have made evangelism easier. We found that 3 in 10, 28%, share their faith via social media. And almost 6 in 10, 58%, non-Christians say someone has shared their faith with them through Facebook. Still, spiritual conversations are fraught in a digital age, and younger generations are among the most cautious about engaging. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts about, evangelizing, right? In the electronic ministry, right? Like,
I see what you did there. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Bars,
I see you.
You know what I mean? Like,
bars. All right.
What's been your experience? I mean, most of us, we do a lot online as well as, organic analog ministry, if you will. But, since we've been stuck in the universe of digital binary codes, right? How has it been your experience evangelizing online?
I think it's been fantastic. I love social media, man, because I use it's such a ministry tool for me. You know what I mean? A lot of people use social media as some type of venting, mechanism, which as a mental health specialist and soon to be doctor in psychology, don't ever do that. Don't do that. That is such a bad idea. But I think it's really good because, especially from an apologetic standpoint, especially from a Gen Z standpoint, I do lots of Pew Research and Barna research, and Gen Z is such a screen society that
When you say Gen Z, you mean Generation Z? Is that what you mean?
Generation Z. So Generation Z is around like 99, not between not like 90. So you have like baby boomers, of course, and Gen X is until about 81 or so. And then you have Gen Y, which is about until like 98, 99. And then Gen Z is around 99, 2000. So that type of crowd. And then you have even Gen Alpha, which is about 2010 or so. And so that crowd, and just really understanding those dynamics and their interests, IG, YouTube. I mean, IG and YouTube are two of the biggest social media platforms for this generation as far as Gen Y and Gen Z. Why not speak to the language of the people and use those free platforms as avenues to spread the gospel. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
like, unlike a lot of Hebrew Israelites, there's not a lot of people in street corners anymore. You're blocking me now because of Nate. Uh, there's not a lot of people in street corners and even Christian. And I'm all for street evangelism. I'm not reformed, but I do appreciate the Todd Friels of this world, going out and still, in street preaching. And I certainly appreciate Ray Comfort. Oh my goodness, he is just he is an amazing street apologist. But I think that's important. But with this culture, you got to know what their language is, man. And I think I think that screen society. What better way than funny memes and posts and videos and things like that. And it's in the ministry that I have on Facebook, dude. I get messages every single day from people like Nicodemus, you know what I mean? Kind of like, what must I do to be saved?
Yeah.
And asking more questions in apologetics. It's funny, even now, even probably 10 minutes ago during this message, I was dialoguing with somebody on Facebook. So I get private messages every single day asking apologetic questions, and people want to dig more and learn more. So God is really using social media for his glory.
And to your point, Chris, this is another chart from that same article, the give and take of digital evangelism, right? And it's talking about the boomers, Gen X, and millennials. And one of them says technology and digital interactions have made sharing my faith easier, right? It's the Gen Xers that feel that way the most, whereas the boomers not so much, right? Another one here says it's harder to have a private one-on-one conversation now than in the past because people are so busy with phones and technology. The millennials and the boomers feel that way, right? But the Gen Xers and the millennials feel that way, but the boomers not so much. Technology and digital interactions make me more careful about how and when I share my faith. The boomers do not feel that way at all about that. And then lastly, people are more likely to avoid real spiritual conversations than they were in the past because they are so busy with technology, which is kind of interesting. Like, how does that work? You're too busy to have conversations online because you're too busy with technology, but isn't technology the reason why you're able to have that communication online? Like, that's a weird.
Well, I guess I mean, when you think about it, with there's so much information, there's so much like media going on. Like by the time you respond to one thread, there's like five other ones that you might be like, oh man, that's interesting. That's interesting. So like it could be like it just you end up being surface level in your engagement rather than really digging into any one particular thing, including conversations about spirituality, perhaps. I mean, I don't want to read too much into the stat, but that might be one way in which it could come about, Right. But I mean, I agree with Featherstone was saying. I mean, it's the fields are white with harvest. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when you think about the first generation Christians having to walk here, walk there, take a camel, mule, or whatever to get from town to town to preach the gospel, and I mean, they gotta. I mean, think of like what would they have to do to get like 100,000 people's attention? You know what I'm saying? Whereas, we could drop a video like this video right now. I mean, you might have hundreds of people watching right now. You know what I'm saying? Or you could have, you got the guy like I'm thinking people like David Wood, who's got like 470,000 some subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that's more than any mega church pastor just about that I know. I mean, that I can think of anyway. Right. You know what I mean? And so you have this this opportunity, but at the same time, I think we're going to be held accountable for how we utilize what we have at our disposal.
Yes.
We have this great technology. We have this audience that's just waiting to be engaged. And what are we doing with it? What are we really doing with it? So I'm thankful that we have guys out here, like y'all, what I mean, and I'm glad to be counted amongst your number, but when I think about evangelism online. On the one hand, well, put it this way. Let's say you're just walking down the street and you just feel compelled to minister to somebody. Just say you're street preaching, or you just feel like you want to engage somebody, right? It's not likely that you're going to start preaching the gospel to that person, and then somebody else of a totally different worldview, faith, or whatever comes up and antagonizes you or tends to disrupt.
Right,
That's unlikely in real life.
Your conversation. Right.
Right. It's not, but online, that's very possible. You know what I'm saying? That's very possible, and I think that could be one reason why people feel hesitant to engage in certain conversation, because there's all these onlookers. Unless you're gonna message one another, and that's unusual, I guess, or less likely. But I mean, on top of that, I think it adds again more responsibility on us, because for every video that we're putting out, we have to remember that there's this is spiritual war. And you have the Brother Polites, you have the Young Pharaohs and Kevin Wesley's and whoever else putting out material as well, competing for the interests and the eyeballs and the ear gates of individuals that we're trying to minister to. And so we got to stay on our grind. Last thing I say about one thing, I'm just thinking about responsibility, but one thing that pains me is when I see in the urban apologetics community is us, just biting at each other. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's been a couple times where there's been those kind of spats, and BK, we've talked about this, and when I see that, I'm like, man, look, there's times when things need to be hashed out. But at the same time, while you're making a video, a 3-hour video against a brother in the Lord, Brother Polite just dropped the joint and got like 150,000 views talking garbage. You know what I'm saying? And so we got to keep in mind, the battlefield that we're on. And I think we're going to be held accountable for that. I really do.
Right. And, on that battlefield, what we end up seeing a lot is a phrase that CMB coined, which are zombie posts. Zombie memes.
Okay.
Right? Memes that you've refuted 1 billion times, but they keep coming back.
Right.
They just won't die.
Right.
Like, for example, this thing right here.
Man.
The official Europeanization of the Christian, the official Europeanization of the Christian Church, First Council of Nicaea, begins May 20th, 325 AD, first ever Caucasian conference to settle differences in belief over the divinity of Jesus Christ. It was determined here that Jesus was the one and only begotten Son of God.
Dude, man.
Before I let the goons go and beat up on this, because I know you're dying to do that.
Look at MJ. MJ is ready.
Hold up. The conscious community got to get their story straight.
I almost pulled out my pistol from in my desk.
The conscious community got to get their story straight, because Umar is saying that it's all white folk. Then you got Professor Small saying that Kemetic priests were there.
Oh,
so which one is it?
Which one is? That's a good point. That's
true.
Get your story right before you do this. But
why is he showing us pictures? Well, I don't know. I mean, there's artistry of the Council of Nicaea. Like, why show the Last Supper? I was confused.
Exactly. It's not even the Council of Nicaea, dude. Get the picture right.
Get the picture. All right, now I know we're about to go in, but I just want to give a quick shout out to the sister Nefertiti, who dropped a real quick video in response to him. And actually, she was in his live on Instagram after a bunch of people got at him, what I'm saying, and asked him if he would recant his statement or retract his statements about it. He said no, and I'll speak more on that. But I just want to give a shout out to Nefertiti. Well, let me just say this too, real quick. I know we're about to go in, but what's crazy to me is if he had dropped this same picture, say 3 years ago, would there have been a Nefertiti on his live getting at him? I'm saying, would there have been a Pastor Mason or somebody like myself or Damon on that thread? I mean, because when he dropped that joint, like the hounds was out. I don't know if everybody was on Instagram at the same time or what, but I mean, I started seeing cats, come out of the woodwork. I mean, it was like haymakers were being thrown, and I was encouraged, bro. I was so encouraged. I'm like, yes, like we are, you can't get away with this stuff anymore. For so long, these cats could get away with this stuff, and there was no Christians to rise up and say something. But now, when you throw that meme out, you might get your hand bit off. It's not a game out here. You know what I'm saying? It is not a game.
Adam, y'all, I went on his just to see the comments.
Yeah.
On this meme right here, and y'all was on that dude like them honeybees are on that murder wasp. When that song came on, we some head busters.
Yo,
But
man.
I saw about 7 comments back after back after back.
Yeah, man, it was
But,
wild.
you know, I went ahead and threw my little shot in, my little boot to the chest in, and done with it.
Yeah, man, and I know what Featherstone. I think you dropped the video on it too, right? Or was it an article?
He blogged.
A long blog, man.
Blog, yeah, bar. Everybody's got bars for this, man. Like, and I love it. I love the fact that you can't get away with this stuff anymore, man. I love it, man.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. So
yes, you're not letting nothing slide.
Again, right? Because we know what happened because we know who was there.
Yes,
we already know, fam.
Yes.
Theodore of Cyrus, the history of Theodoret. He says Constantine had invited all 1,800 bishops of the Christian church within the Roman Empire, about 1,000 in the east and 800 in the west. But a smaller unknown number attended. Maybe that was the Kemetic priest Professor Small was talking about. Eusebius of Caesarea counted more than 250. Athanasius of Alexandria counted 318. Ephitasius of Antioch estimated about 270. All three were present at the council.
Come on, man.
Later, Socrates, Scholastius recorded more than 300. And Evagrius, Hilary of Poitiers, Jerome, Dionysius, Ecadius, and Rufinus recorded 318. This number 318 is preserved in the liturgies of the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Coptic Orthodox Church of Alexandria. They were there and they were like, yeah, it's 300, 200. You know, they were all surmising. But they get to do that. You know why? Because they were there.
Because they were there. Right. But BK, this is the problem. Like, remember we talked about this in our video. Like, when this is such a pet peeve for me because when it comes to the Council of Nicaea, like, there's really no need for all the mystery. I'm saying, like, we have documentation, still extant copies of people writing about what happened at the Council of Nicaea today. Like, when we was in that video, I was reading from Athanasius' works. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm reading from some of this stuff. Like,
where's Athanasius from, by the way?
Alexandria, Egypt.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Right. So, I mean, but not just that. So he's from Alexandria, Egypt. Bishop Alexander is from Alexandria.
And even Arius, the person who was trying to bang against is African.
He's supposed to be a Libyan who was in Alexandria. And this whole beef started in Alexandria, Egypt.
Right.
So now, how does the Caucasian Council be? How, bro?
If you watch that Hidden Colors,
don't do that. Don't do that.
That Umar Johnson.
I'm gonna mute you right now. You see that? Don't do that.
Hey. Now, if you watch that Hidden Colors, that Umar Johnson been telling everybody that he's gonna bootleg because Tariq Nasheed didn't pay him. They said that the Aryans were really the Germans.
He did say that. Yeah, he did say that.
Who said that? Colin, who said that again?
That was Booker T. Coleman. Booker T. Coleman, yeah. Matter of fact, maybe Umar Johnson did bootleg Hidden Colors. Maybe that's what that meme was supposed to be. That was his bootleg version of Hidden Colors.
So hang on for a second. Umar Johnson has criticized almost every pseudo scholar, because I'm not going to call them scholars, in the conscious community. He says y'all are regurgitating plagiarized information, and lo and behold, look what Umar Johnson is doing.
Right.
He blasted SETI and said, I am a published scholar. I got a PhD. Yes, I wear suits. I wrote a dissertation, this and that. Dude, now if you done all that, you know better.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why you got to get got. You know better.
You know better.
But that's what we did on Thursday night at our Bible study. Man, I played a clip off of that one, and that was exactly the same clip. And it's funny enough, Pastor Mason was on there talking about this. Nephew was on there talking about this. This meme came up, and all that kind of stuff. It was bananas how it all worked out. You know, and the thing of it is, like, if you are not paying attention, this sounds good. The man sounded like he knew what he was talking about, you know. It was so, like, I mean, everybody loves a good conspiracy. Everybody loves, you know, like hidden knowledge. Oh, bro, they ain't telling you the truth. Come over here, let me tell you what I got. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like people open up the trench coat trying to show you a watch they want to buy. Like, are you serious right now?
And you know what's so terrible? Bro. You know what's so terrible too? Like, when he was doubling down on the meme and supporting his own meme, trying to, speaking as if he has, facts and all this kind of stuff. He's like, I talk about facts. He explained that according to him, the Council of Nicaea is where it was determined that Jesus was the Son of God.
Right.
That was in no way the centerpiece of the Council of Nicaea. It wasn't about whether he was the Son of God. The question was whether or not he's God. That was the question. You know what I'm saying? But Umar Johnson's like, I bring facts, and that's where he decided Jesus was the Son of God. No, hey, bro, even you can't even support your own lies, right, bro? You don't even know enough about the topic to even lie about it, right? You know what I'm saying? Just like
before we continue, my queen
it was
just
not
checked in.
a Caucasian conference. Umar,
my queen just checked in. Sajin, my wife, saying hello.
Oh, okay.
Everybody gotta be quiet. Gotta respect the queen. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, continue. Now you continue. All right, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Right. But yeah. I mean, you're right. It wasn't a Caucasian conference. I don't know how he would substantiate that. You know what I'm saying? And so, man, it is. The Prince of Panhandling, the Prince of Ponzi scheme.
I like that.
The Prince of Ponzi scheme. I got a bunch more. I got more.
He said panhandling.
Yeah.
But to your point, right? The meme said that's when they decided he was the Son of God, right? Well, in the Search of the Christian Doctrine by R.P.C. Hansen, says Arius is notable primarily because of his role in the Arian controversy, a great 4th century theological conflict that led to the calling of the First Ecumenical Council of the Church. This controversy centered upon the nature of the Son of God and his precise relationship to God the Father. Not that whether or not he is the Son of God, but the nature of the Son of God.
Right, because Arius was trying to defend his point of the Son was created. And so basically that's where Arianism come from. And so basically he was trying to defend that, and he got excommunicated because they thought it was a heresy. And then he tried to do it again. And Alexander wrote a letter to like 250 people, like, no, don't bring him back in. And so, and then he went to like Palestine and tried to spread the message. And then the council came because he tried to defend it to Constantine. And so, and so there were like the emperor before Lucian, I believe, right before Constantine. It was like Alexander and Arius, and they were like, and he was like, okay, well, y'all can do what y'all do, but just be nice, basically. And so, but Arius kept trying to spread this message, and then what happened was he started to like get real serious about it, and then people are like, no, this is heresy. We're not going to sit here and try to be nice and just get to a point where we're just like, ha and everything's cool. No, this is heresy. And so he kept trying to push this message, and then finally he tried to defend it Constantine, hence the Council of Nicaea. That had nothing to do with saying, okay, well, now today we're determined that Jesus is the Son of God. No, it stemmed from Arius continued to try to push his message and defended it, and he ended up losing because it was declared heresy. And so it just, come on, understand your history, my friend. Umar, listen, he's a doctor in clinical psychology, I believe it is.
Yeah.
And I'm about to be a doctor in forensic psychology. And so as fellow psychology doctors, my man, please use your scholarship correctly, my friend. Please.
I thought you were going to see a mix mode for a minute there, Chris.
Well, no, I mean, but there's so many. I mean, so I'll say this. I'm trying to be nice because I'm on your channel, BK. I'm trying to respect the room, man. You know what I'm saying?
He's like, nah.
I can bring more hot sauce than this. You know what I mean?
We're at the bodega, brother.
Oh, don't say hot sauce.
Yeah, you're right.
Don't say hot sauce.
I mean,
but the thing is, like, it just seems to me that Umar is constantly doing whatever he can do to prove to us that he doesn't know what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, because the reality is, even when even once they got to the, when this council is convened, they were relying in part on the works of Tertullian, you know what I'm saying, as they're wrestling with this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like some of the very language in the Nicene Creed, the Nicene Constantinople Creed, you know what I'm saying? It traces back to Tertullian. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, he in his defense of himself, he said something like it wasn't universally accepted that Jesus was the Son of God, and that's just slick talk. Because the reality is, there is the divinity, the full divinity of Christ is a fact that's grounded in Scripture that has always had a representation throughout the Christian Christian history.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality of it. You know what I'm saying? You can't nuance your way out of that. You know what I'm saying?
Which is a
And
great
even then,
segue to this scripture right here, because this is Paul quoting a very ancient creedal statement that was in existence prior to Paul's conversion. And it's in Romans 1:3-4, concerning his son, who was descended from David according to the flesh, and was declared to be the Son of God in power according to the Spirit of holiness by his resurrection from the dead, Jesus Christ our Lord. The majority of scholars writing on Romans propose the letter was written in late 55, early 56, or late 56, early 57. This is F.F. Bruce and D.J. Dunn saying, or J.D. Dunn saying this, right? These are well-renowned scholars. But if you don't want to take the scholar's word for it, I understand. You know, we have a papyrus, right, of the epistle.
Got him.
10.
Got him.
Written about AD 316. Now, when was the council again?
25.
Oh.
Got him.
Got him.
Oh, okay.
See?
Okay. So
I did the Mortal Kombat, John. I told somebody did this.
That's right.
So no matter how you call it, whether you don't want to do the scholar consensus, fine. We have
Somebody
actual
said fatality.
Right.
We have paper that's dated that everybody agrees with. That it was, you know what I mean? So
It's like, yeah, exactly, man. And he said something about, yeah, well, you know, because after if you disagree with the council, then you would be put to death or something like that. And I'm not saying they didn't get ill back in those times, but again, we had to be careful. So let me teach y'all how Umar does things, right? Umar will take historical facts, right, and he'll glue them together with bad logic. You know what I'm saying? That's what he does all the time. He'll hit you with a couple things that are true, and he glues them together with either falsehood or something that's illogical. He does it all the time. And he, particularly when talking about history, he'll flatten out history to kind of just give you a couple facts without giving you a whole picture. And then that way he can just kind of push his narrative. Right. Because if you talk further about it, you have to understand that even after the Council of Nicaea, the first one, I'm saying you actually have the church lapsing back into Arianism for a period of time. You see what I'm saying? And Constantine was actually reportedly baptized at deathbed baptism type of deal by an Arian priest.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So he's condensing these massive chunks of history into this flat narrative that really advances his platform. And again, just demonstrating that he has no earthly clue what he's talking about.
Which circles back to the importance of evangelism, right? Of being able to not only share your faith, but defend it as well. I know Dr. Detroit would like to speak on that real quick.
Yeah, I wanted to, chime in on that one because both Adam Coleman and MJ had made a couple references that I thought were like, man, these are things that people need to pay attention. One of which Adam pointed out that evangelism is spiritual warfare. I love that's how Michael Heizer talks about it. He says, "What is evangelism?" I said, "What is spiritual warfare?" It's evangelism. It's the people of God sharing the message of the gospel. That's what spiritual warfare is. So don't forget about that, and don't ignore it, and don't undervalue that significant point. Secondly, MJ was earlier talking about a reference of Francis Schaeffer, and in one of Francis Schaeffer's seminal works, "How Then Shall We Live." And in that book, he talks about the upper story and the lower story, how we kind of break down the way that we think into like spiritual things and spirituality, and then secular things and things that are unrelated to what God would have us interact with. And I think that often that's how we kind of interact in evangelism. We kind of have this secular sacred divide. I think we often lean too heavily on Platonic thinking. This sense that Christianity is about some far future disembodied state, whereas the Christian worldview is about it was the garden, and then in Revelation it's about God coming down, a new heaven, new earth coming down, and God dwelling on earth. The point being, life down here on earth matters a whole lot more than we often give it credit for. So some advice on evangelism. someone, I think it was Adam, mentioned how sometimes, or maybe it was the burner polling. It's hard to have conversations because it gets convoluted with other people chiming in and stuff like that. One of the things that I've found to be immensely beneficial is to like, hey, if I'm in a conversation with a person and it starts to get convoluted, I'll inbox that person and I'll be like, hey, you want to get on the phone? We can call through Facebook, and we don't have, if you don't want to exchange information, well, we can exchange information and we can make this kind of a moving forward. We can interact and have a conversation on, evangelistic conversation about it. So that's one thing, you know, realizing that you got that opportunity at your availed to you. Another thing is, you know, there are it's popular these days to use sarcasm as a means of evangelism, and that's valid. That's what I'm not saying is that not valid. That's very much valid. You know, I cringe at some Islamicized beats. I laugh at some other ones, but but at the end of the day, I think that sometimes we go to the well too much with, you know, we'll pop a meme and we'll be a little bit condescending, we'll be a little bit rude. I think we need to get back to the point to where with this graciousness, we were talking about Robbie, with gentleness and respect, 1 Peter 3:15. We need to realize that these are human beings, that this is eternity with the living God at stake. And it's certainly worth being more gracious and holding it. You know, I love telling jokes and I love making fun of people. That's just the truth. Sometimes you gotta hold it in because it's in the best interest of the conversation to be gentle and respectful than it is to take advantage of that opportunity to crack a joke at the expense of the person. Yeah, I just want to.
MJ, you gotta be respectful, MJ. You heard that?
Yeah, so
absolutely. Y'all are my elders. I'm listening. He's still working on me, but I'm listening.
I don't disagree with you at all. And this is what I'm about to say is not a counter argument. I'm not in any way disagreeing with you. I think, but maybe to identify. No, actually, this might just be me. I don't want to put this on everybody, but like I come out of that hip hop era. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, 90s hip hop. Like back in the day. Like if you was at like a party or something like that, and there was like another rapper there, and it was like, yo, you know, like y'all had to battle. Like it wasn't even like a thing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like it's about who's going to be the nicest.
Absolutely.
And so it's easy to let that bleed into apologetics. You know what I'm saying? And so like when I first started, like yo, I'm not lying. Like I would hop on threads, and I said this. I was joking. I said, well, half joking. I said it the other day. I would hop on threads. I kind of had that mentality, like early Meek Mills when he was on the street corner with the dirty braids. You know what I mean? Going at somebody. That's kind of how I approach it. You know what I mean? But I've mellowed out quite a bit. You know what I mean? And unless somebody, you know, brings it out, I try to be more, you know, diplomatic, because at the end of the day, I do think that we always want to give people the best opportunity to hear what it is that you have to say. I'm saying you always want to give people the best opportunity to do that, you know, and so
it's important that we equip everyone. So because eventually, if you're
MJ disagrees,
I got a question.
Yeah,
eventually you gotta play whack-a-mole with these zombie memes eventually, right?
Sure.
Okay, so we got the zombie memes, but Adam know what I'm getting ready to talk about, and we do have a brother in the woke Christians group right now. With the last name Jones. I'm gonna leave it there.
Oh gosh.
But I mean, you remember when Alex Angram came to the and his name is brother Atmos, whatever his name is.
Right.
You know what he's there for.
Mm-hmm.
We know what he's there for. I mean, does discernment play a role when somebody clearly just needs to be refuted? I mean,
I can give you my perspective, but I mean, I'm not. I don't know if everybody. Actually, this is a good question here. Different people's views. I mean, so like my general, the way I kind of think through it is if I'm dealing with somebody who just has strong opinions, and we can have a dialogue, and that'll be that. Then that's cool. And that's what it'll be. You know what I'm saying? If they're being respectful, I'm going to be respectful and so forth. But there are times where you do have people like you know your boy Alex, who will jump on a forum, and their intent, you know, their intent for being there is to make Christians look stupid, or is to confound somebody's faith. And so when I'm dealing with a bully, then I'm going to bully the bully. That's just what it is. And it's nothing personal necessarily against them, but I'm defending my brethren. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to let my brethren get beat up. And so sometimes you do have to humble people. And what I have learned to do is, because before I would just go in and just try to knock somebody's teeth out. Now what I try to do is just, I give them a nice little chin check, and if they redirect themselves, then I fall back. You know what I'm saying? And I've had that happen more times than not. So I do think that there's different situations. So a perfect example, Simeon the wizard. You know what I'm saying? When you're looking in the book of Acts, right? That man got straight blinded. You know what I mean? They straight, I don't know if you would call it a curse or whatever, a pronouncement of judgment, you know what I'm saying, that had physical ramifications. Now, was he unsaved? It seemed to be, and seemed like he was engaged in the things of God for ill intent, and they addressed him differently than just the average person that they were witnessing to. You know what I'm saying? So you do have people like that Paul described as being enemies of the cross. And I think that when you encounter those, then there are times where your methods might be different than engaging just your run of the mill, lost soul.
Well, somebody had posted Ravi Zacharias and Hugh Ross on this radio show. I don't know who it was that posted it, but this one lady was kind of eating Hugh Ross up a little bit, and then Ravi Zacharias jumped in that bad boy and just started doing offensive apologetics, so to speak. So I think there's a difference between positive apologetics and defensive apologetics. I think sometimes it may feel a certain way when we engage in when we engage in critiquing a worldview with devastating impact. It can be very devastating when you get your worldview critiqued. But I would agree with Adam that discernment is needed to be used, and that's why I like so much about Douglas Groothuis. He always talks about the heart of an apologist and how we should also make sure that we're praying and that we're doing Adam, you talked to me about this too. You said it's spiritual warfare. We need to make sure our prayer life.
You can't sleep on that, man. It's true.
Amen.
So the prayer life plays a big role too, because we want our hearts to be right as well when we engage in these people. But like y'all said, there do come a time where when a person is there just to stir up trouble, gotta be
actually, and as a lot of people don't notice that, but like my favorite apologist, not necessarily because of his content, but just I like the guy, is Richard Swinburne. And the reason why is because if you watch Richard Swinburne don't let nothing slide. I'm saying, if you say, I was watching this one joint, it was just a dialogue with him as like 5 atheists or whatever, and they were talking about whether dualism, substance dualism is true, or if we're just physical beings, or do we have like a soul. And there was this one joint, he was talking, say like the 10-minute mark, and this young lady who was also on the panel like kind of took a jab at him or questioned him. She just questioned him on something. And no lie, the video, the dialogue goes on for like 40 more minutes. And like 40 minutes later, he said, and by the way, I want to go back to something that you said like 45 minutes ago. And I was like, yes, that's what I'm talking about. I love it.
It's really a matter of it's a matter of discipleship, right? Because we are supposed to imitate Jesus, right? Well, Jesus spoke to people where they were at, right? He didn't talk to the apostles the way he talked to the Pharisees. He just didn't, because they're in different places. He took his time with the apostles. He taught the apostles. But anytime he ran into a scribe or a Pharisee, what's the first thing Jesus would say? Is it not written?
Or you
know what I mean?
What'd you say, Chris?
Or you hypocrites.
Yeah.
Hey, that's Alfredo.
You snakes, you vipers.
Alfredo.
How Adam was channeling his inner Snoop, talk about it like he ain't been out a second, was already trying to do some chin checking.
So I told her chin checks, but I don't remember that, but I probably did though.
But there's apologetics and there's polemics.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's also in your toolbox. There is a time to dabble in polemics, because for that person, they do need the chin check for them to be clear to hear the gospel. For that person,
that's real. So check this out, because somebody mentioned, and I'm not disagreeing, but like with like David Wood and the Islamicizing stuff. I mean, it's hard to stomach for a lot of people. But one thing that was interesting is I know William Lane Craig was talking about, he had a debate with some Muslim. I can't remember who it was. And I think in the first debate, he didn't really get any good reaction from
it was Jamal Badawi.
Okay, great. Okay, got you. And I heard him talk about how he actually, got a little spicy. You know what I mean? As things got, kind of kept going, because in that culture, the more passionate you are about something, it's evidence that you really believe it, and it's more compelling.
Right.
So it's almost like for him, it was like become all things to all people that you might win some. He had to, go in that bag and get a little saucy with him, but in that context, it worked. You know what I mean? And I think it's the same thing with urban apologetics. Like, this is a little bit different than dealing with, your Richard Dawkinsons or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's nothing. It's just different. And I think that maybe one lesson to be learned is just kind of being able to be aware that there's different tools in the toolbox that we ought to be applying at different times. You know what I'm saying?
I totally agree with that.
And that's ultimately what I was referring to. I wasn't saying that we need to switch up our apologetic.
Right.
There are no silver bullets. It was more of a, sometimes we use the wrong apologetic, and we need to be more thoughtful and realize that within the interactions, when is the appropriate time to do which.
I think it's important to, like, again, it goes back to what you were talking about, Adam, in 1 Corinthians 9, all things, all men, so I may, save some. And I think, when it comes to conscious and committed community, like, they already think Christians are soft. You know what I mean? So we can't just be coming in there, just kind of ballet, doing some type of pirouettes, you know what I mean? And just kind of back out like that goes toward their framework of Christians are soft anyways. Mm-hmm. So I think there's wisdom, there's wisdom as far as the approach of knowing who you're talking to. Now, if there's someone who is dealing with, alcohol abuse or something like that, you don't want to be as, firm on them as far as, the Bible does say, you can't get drunk, you sinner. You know what I mean? Like there's wisdom in that. You know what I mean?
Right.
That can crush somebody. You know what I mean?
But so I'm going to come now. Watch this though. I think you said something really important, right? Now dig this, right? This is something I'm just going to toss out to the group. I think this is correct. I'm just going to toss it out there. So we know that unfortunately in the African American community, there's the issue of fatherlessness. You know what I'm saying? And I think in our context, manhood is in itself an apologetic. You know what I'm saying? Exemplifying what a man is, you know what I'm saying, is itself an apologetic. And when you think about it, to their credit, the Hebrew Israelites, they project that. You know what I'm saying? That's one of their selling points. I mean, they, if you're a young man, say you're in prison or got out, or maybe just on the block and you see dudes in uniform looking sharp, or looking, unified or whatever, and somebody speaking boldly about something, that in and of itself is compelling. Absolutely. Right? Now, we are made in the image of God, and we're being conformed to the image of Christ, the manliest man there ever was. If anybody should be exemplifying what manhood is, it should be us. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that when we do that, it ends up, that in and of itself is apologetic. In our context, that's why sometimes you have to have that show of force. Right. Now it doesn't have to be out of control. There's a difference between being strong and being reckless. Right. You know what I'm saying? I think that's to Chris's point. I know there's two Chris's, so I got to figure out a way to differentiate. But like between Chris from Detroit's point, I think that's so crucial that we not be reckless. You know what I'm saying? And we end up injuring people because it's a double-edged sword. We've got a lot of broken men in our community. Yes. And if we're out here breaking men in a bad way, you know what I'm saying, then we're actually perpetuating the very thing that we ought to be, ministering to folks about. So
yeah, I think that there's I think that's where like wisdom, and I think philosophy has such a huge and crucial part in apologetics as well, because as we're talking, I go back to John 4, right? When Jesus is speaking to the Samaritan woman, very, very philosophical in his approach. He comes to her saying, everything was very rhetorical. He knew everything, and he asked for something to drink, right? And so they go back and forth in a dialogue. And in John 4, it says, verse 13, it says, Jesus replied, anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again, but those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. The woman says, please, sir, the woman said, give me this water, then I'll never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come get water. And this is what Jesus says, verse 16. very philosophical. He says, "Go get your husband." And the woman says, "I don't have a husband." And Jesus says in verse 17, "You're right. You don't have a husband, for you have 5 husbands, and you aren't even married to the man you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth." And in verse 19, what does it say? It says, "Sir," the woman says, "you must be a prophet. So tell me, why is it that you Jews insist that Jerusalem is the only place of worship,
Deflection.
while we Samaritans claim it here as Mount Gerizim, where our ancestors worship?" Jesus replied in verse 21, "Believe me, dear woman, the time is coming when it no longer matter whether you worship the Father in this mountain or in Jerusalem," and so on and so forth. And so, and then verse 25 says, the woman says, "I know the Messiah is coming, the one who's called Christ. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Verse 26, then Jesus told her, "I am the Messiah." That is a powerful, powerful scripture, man, and a powerful passage. Very philosophical, very apologetic, and even polemic. You know what I mean? It's like really everything wrapped in one. And I think that's the wisdom that we need to have when we read John 4. There's a philosophical approach, there's a wise approach, and at the end of the day, it's kind of like Socratic in a sense. You know what I mean? When it comes to that type of philosophical approach. And eventually she was like, "Okay, you must be a prophet." Because
some other stuff. Yeah.
So I have a question from R.A. Torrey that's going to take up half the screen. All right. Okay. So how do you incorporate this passage in application to win people to Christ? And the servant of the Lord must not strive, but be gentle unto all men, apt to teach, patient in meekness, instructing those that oppose themselves. If God peradventure will give them repentance to the acknowledging of the truth, and that they may recover themselves out of the snare of the devil, who are taken captive by him at his will. 2 Timothy 2:24-26. And 1 Timothy 2:24. 1 Timothy 2:24-26. So
I saw that earlier and I was kind of looking at the stuff. I want to address it real quick. So some folks will kind of look at that and say, well, it says, but we shouldn't quarrel or we shouldn't argue and stuff like that. Right. That's one way to look at it. But then again, we always want to look at context, right? So if we go back up to verse 22, right? We just get to see kind of like an understanding of this, because Second Timothy is a pastoral letter and so forth. That and what Paul's saying here in verse 22, it says, "Flee from youthful passions and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord from a pure heart." And then it says, "Reject foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing that they'll breed quarrels," and so forth like that. Right. So if we talk about like youthful passions and pursuing righteousness, we don't want to just be arguing for the sake of arguing. You know what I'm saying? I got 2 kids that are 8, 9, and almost 11. Right? You know what I'm saying? And they will argue over the dumbest stuff. You touched my controller. And then they'll be scrapping in the living room. You know what I'm saying? And we got to referee them like that. That's a youthful passion. That is something that is it's not really going to help matters. So when we're looking at what the scripture's talking about, discernment is 100% accurate and 100% needed. Yes, and knowing what it is. And I think BK said it already. Knowing who you're talking to. We always talk. Paul and Areopagus or Mars Hill always comes up. You know what I'm saying? Paul is at his ear to the streets. He knows what's happening in Athens, and when he arrives at this place and says to the unknown God, "I can address people like this." You know what I'm saying? When he meets Peter, and he's got this two-faced thing going on where Peter wants to be one way when the Jews are there and one way when the Jews are not there. Now he can withstand it to his face. He can get in his grill and talk about what's important and what's not. That is necessary at times, right? It just really depends on the context and so forth like that. And I think that's been said a lot, but yeah, it's not that we should be afraid of argumentation or defending the faith or polemics and all that kind of stuff there. It's necessary, and for us as humans, sometimes we get in our feelings and we do get a little prideful. We do want to, right. That's right. We do want to get to the point where we could do what it takes to kind of win, but we always have to keep that in mind. We're winning souls, not arguments. And it's not cliche This is real deal. Every last one of us on here, I think people that are listening by far and away, we're wanting to make sure people understand truth so that they can hear the gospel and receive the Lord. That's what we're trying to hear. That's what we're out here for.
Yep.
You know, and a lot of people will say a lot of accusations, a lot of different kinds of things, but at the end of the day, we're here for that first and foremost.
And speaking of
It's a good answer.
dealing with the truth, right? And this is something that actually CMB shared with us prior to today's discussion. This is a screenshot. Um, Colin, can you explain what this screenshot is?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I had a friend of mine, and she has a sixth grader, right? And so they're finishing up their school and so forth like that. And so she had the sixth grader had an assignment. Did you get the
Yeah,
word
yeah.
copy of
I
it?
want to
Okay,
I want to show
I
them the
bet.
screenshot. Then I'm going to show them the actual the
Okay,
text. So actually, Colin, if you could read that for us, since
all
it's
right,
your
cool.
thing. Yeah.
So it so it says it was a respect activity. All right, it's a sixth grade assignment. It said read/listen to the following sentences. It is important to let people feel happy doing things they like. Tommy should be allowed to wear his dress without being made fun of. When Tommy is teased because of wearing the dress, he feels terribly upset and unwell. Tommy feels happiest when he is being himself, and this is when he wears the dress. Some girls like to wear dresses, and some girls don't, and that's okay. Some boys like to wear dresses, and some boys don't, and that's okay. We're all different, but being a good friend and showing respect is something we can all do.
Sorry. Go
All right. And number two is, do you agree or disagree? If Tommy was in your class in school, how would you show him respect? Explain your answer and by pressing the record button. And it was an option to record your answer. And the bottom part here, the disclaimer says, everyone has opinions on what people should or should not wear, and that's okay. There's no wrong answer to this activity. I will not judge you based on your answer. All I ask is that you answer respectfully, even if you disagree. So that was the assignment, and so my friend that she was kind of concerned. And she said, like, well, what should I do? I don't really feel comfortable having my son fill out this do this activity or whatever the case was. So I just wanted to throw that out to the chat. What y'all think?
Everybody's quiet. Come on,
Baby.
urban apologists.
I'll
Let's
say
get
something.
cracking.
I'll say
Adam.
something. I'll
Yeah.
say something. So, can you go to the other page?
Sure.
Okay. So, the important part is what I would emphasize for my kids. I have 3 kids, 2 of them, one of them in school, one of them going to school this year. And I would say to them, if well, they go to Christian school, so they better not be having some type of bet not. But if they did go to a public school, I would say, how would you answer that according to what you've been raised, according to how you've been taught in your home? And they probably would say, well, I mean, I've been taught that God loves everyone, but but the Bible says for men to be men and women to be women, and that homosexuality is wrong. All right, write that down. And so my thing is this: if you're going to respect what I write on there, and as long as I am not doing it in a way that's, just saying I hate everybody else, okay, I better not get any type of backlash for the response that I put down that supports biblical values. And if I do, you didn't honor that important part. Simple as that.
Cool.
Um,
Anyone
I,
else?
I, would, I would say, as the great coach Denny Green of the Arizona Cardinals, after getting pummeled by the Chicago Bears, they are who we thought they are. I mean, like, what do we expect? Like, heathen or non, people without the North Star, the compass of life of the Bible to do. They acquiesce to public opinion, whatever the masses want. That's ultimately what they do. So on one hand, I actually thought it was awful gracious of them to say that you can have an opinion that's negative and you won't be penalized for it as long as you offer graciously. I thought that was pretty cool. Beyond that, I mean, to me, this is the world we live in. I mean, like, what are you hearing? The MCU movies about to have homosexuals as kind of a prominent feature. Every television show that you turn on, that's the new normal. So they're bombarding us with it and attempting to desensitize us to the fact that same-sex attraction is supposed to be some normal thing now. So on one hand, I feel like, hey, it is what they're doing, what they're supposed to do. On the other hand, I think that we need to be salt and light and stand up for what is true and righteous. So
one thing we need to I think one thing we need to realize is that everybody is intolerant to something. And I think the culture that we live in, it's a false narrative because they do stuff or our culture kind of propagates tolerance, but at the same time, every single person is intolerant to something. I'm intolerant to Dr. Umar's false rhetoric. I'm intolerant to Hebrew Israelites on the street corner just totally butchering what scripture says. I'm intolerant to stuff like that. And every single person, there's this big message of tolerance. That's impossible because every single person's intolerant to something. And I think when it gets to the point, if you're continuing to spread a message of tolerance, it's a false narrative. I think respect is important. I think even challenging dialogue is important to spread. But when you're spreading that type of message and then you bash someone and call them a bigot in the same breath because they hold the biblical values, you're clearly showing intolerance, but saying that you're tolerant in the same breath. So we just need to understand that everybody's intolerant to something.
I think what's problematic, the thing that's problematic for this respect activity is the very first statement. It is important to let people feel happy doing things they like.
There you go.
That's super problematic. Because first of all, you're saying that your happiness is contingent upon someone allowing it to occur?
What about Hitler's happiness?
Right.
Right? So it's like, so someone else is in control of your happiness, right? So that's weird. But then to say it's important to let people feel happy doing things they like. Well, the things that they like, is it very conducive to society? Is it okay for them, if they like hurting people, is that okay? Because it makes them happy. So should we allow that type of behavior?
Well, I mean, immediately a contradiction arises because some kids may like to beat up on boys who wear girls' clothes.
Exactly.
Right.
There you go.
Right. So now you got this competition of likes going on, and any authority figure, the teacher, principal, now they've disarmed themselves from being able to say or do anything about it because, hey, you're supposed to let people do what they like, right?
Right.
And this is so important about worldviews, and this is one thing that I'm challenging myself on. Like, how do I raise my children from an early age to be able to apply the biblical worldview to whatever extent that they can? Because that's really what this is about. This is going back to what Chris from Detroit was saying. I mean, you're dealing with spiritual warfare, right? You're dealing with a very real satanic influence trying to mold and shape a generation. That's what you're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? The question is, as believers who are entrusted with our children, you know what I'm saying, what are you going to do about it? And I think it really comes back to, men being men in the home and wives obviously, have a phenomenal role, you know what I'm saying? But unfortunately, let's just be real. We as men, we haven't stepped up like we need to. And so I think that needs to happen and really set the tone for helping our kids navigate these things at a much earlier age than we had to deal with. You know what I'm saying?
Vody Balcom, real quick, CMB. Vody Balcom says something real profound. He said we can never get to the point where we have try not to offend people so much that we offend God. And that stood out for me so profoundly. And I'm like, man, that's so true because we're gonna offend somebody. I mean, that's just life.
Inevitable. Yeah.
We're going. It's inevitable. We're going to offend somebody. So at the same time, we have to get to a point as Christians that what does the Bible say about treating people, in love, but at the same time not compromising the gospel. And we're going to offend someone. That's just a part of human nature. And the Bible is offensive. is going to offend people.
No,
But at the same
absolutely.
time, we got to get to the point that
When Adam
we're
says
not
that Eric
offending
Sermon is a
God.
good MC, I take offense to that.
Oh my goodness! Here we
I
go,
think
man.
when he says that.
There we go.
We
Just
have
the
to-
needless
how
jazz,
dare
man.
you.
But we
Here
have to
we
be,
go.
but we have to be in a framework that we aren't trying to not offend people so much that we offend God.
There you go. So BK, if you wouldn't mind putting the thing back on the screen real quick, I want to look at the part there. I think y'all caught it
Oh, man.
right there
I
at the
gotta-
very first sentence
Uh-huh.
about happiness being the zenith of the human experience. That changes. I saw somebody in the chat say happiness is transient, which is true. The things that made me happy when I was 15 or when I was 9 are not the things that make me happy at almost 8:42 right now. So it's a little bit different. One thing I also wanted to point out on the number 2 part there on the assignment, right? It says, "Do you agree or disagree?" Right? Do you agree or disagree? And the question that I would have is, do you agree or disagree with what exactly? Because do you agree that people should be treated with respect? Of course they should be. We're all in the image bearers of God, right? Should we agree or disagree that people must be made to feel happy? No, I don't.
Right.
Right? I work in healthcare. Matter of fact, I do physical therapy. So a lot of times people are coming in after surgeries or coming after car accidents, and I'm asking them to move some body part that hurts. That's not going to make them happy. I've had many people cry, right? Just from on the strength of being on the table, and it's like, okay, you ready to roll? Okay, let's do it. And it makes them very unhappy. But when we're working towards a certain goal, that's a necessary step. Unhappiness. So in that moment, because it's transient, and then once we move on and they're getting better, then God bless them, they do really good. So when we look at these kinds of things, I want to make sure that y'all that are in the chat and anybody else that might listen, whenever we're seeing anything like challenges the Christian faith or some assignment like this, the tactics that Greg Coco talks about. What do you mean by that? What are you asking? Get down to the nitty gritty. Because I know we want to throw Bible verses and all that kind of stuff there, but let's get down to the nitty gritty. What is being asked? What is being promoted? And does that make sense? Because Adam just turned it on its head, immediately. Like, those kinds of things. You can't say that we're going to just focus on people's happiness when there's contradicting forms of happiness. Kids beating up kids that wear dresses and kids that want to wear dresses. So there we go.
Yeah, interestingly enough, this is the same thing that William Lane Craig caught Sam Harris up. When they had their debate. Sam Harris is a gentleman, atheist, who was pushing this perspective that you could reduce morality down to naturalistic terms of well-being and so forth. And one of the things that William Lane Craig pointed out is that you have some people who they might define their well-being as being hurting other people. And so if that's the case, now your whole spectrum of morality, falls apart. And it is those kind of things that are always going to they're going to peek out their head one way or another when you're dealing with these kinds of contradictions. It's going to ultimately boil down to some sort of lapse that nobody can really live out the worldview that's being promoted. Yeah.
It's circular. It's circular because essentially an atheist will be like, well, they'll push back on your statement and say, well, that doesn't promote the greater good. But what about someone who supports eugenics? You know what I mean? And so at the same time, it's like, okay, well, I'm happy about eugenics, but you're happy about this, and that's not the greater good. But with someone who supports eugenics will say, well, it is the greater good. Someone like Margaret Sanger would say, hey,
it's great.
It does promote the greater good. So you can't rest your laurels on that type of framework of the greater good. When someone's greater good, they can totally sit here and defend it to the last breath of why eugenics is a good thing.
Right, and that goes back to the thing, Chris, that when we get to that point, we're looking at the things. There has to be an objective standard of some sort somewhere, right? There cannot be an infinite regress. The buck has to stop someplace, right? And that's the kind of thing that when we start getting into the philosophical part of apologetics, truth is truth, right? And it can't. Relativism is going to end up in a bad spot. So now you have the National Association of Man Boy Love or something like that? NAMBLA, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
That is, bruh, that's disgusting, right? But you have people that will say, "Oh, people have the right to be happy." Well, if I was about to say something different here. Y'all forgive me. My tongue's not delivered yet, but. But some people have a problem with not keeping their hands to themselves. Let's just put it that way. You know what I'm saying? And that is not. You don't get to have that kind of right, in this house.
That's right.
I'm telling you. I'm saved, but touch my kids.
Don't push me. I'm saved.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap for you. The Second Amendment is in full effect in my career. That's real rap. I mean, like.
Wow.
Yo, he's all right, bro.
Play with it if you want.
Why does he have this? What are you preparing for?
I just lost 10 subscribers. Thank you, sir.
Hey.
Yo, but I mean, to your point, though, you talked about objective morality, and again, there's like this. Well, look, going back to the example, like with the question with the boy wearing a dress and all that kind of stuff. That with that passage, they're assuming or they presuppose that respect for somebody else is to be like an objective value.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? They presuppose that. But on an atheistic paradigm, I mean, why think that? Why think that this respect that they pin their whole narrative on? Why take that as being objective?
Well, they can think that way. They just can't justify thinking that way.
Right.
They can think that way. They just can't justify it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. So, lately, we've had, Featherstone doing his CMX rendition, right, of scripture. And, the reason, I don't know if you heard, Adam, how he does an amazing DMX, Chris Featherstone.
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
But, of course, we dub him CMX. But, and the reason why it's funny, CMX. Right? Okay. The reason why it's funny is because we love the idea of, like, these high-profile rappers spitting the gospel, right? Spitting scripture. That's entertaining because we know that doesn't usually happen.
Right.
But what if I had Jay-Z spit in Genesis chapter 1? What would you say to that?
What would I say?
Yes.
I'd be kind of weirded out. I mean, I don't know which way you want to go with that, but you know what I'm saying? Well, it'd be a little odd. I would wonder what his motivations are. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's not really him per se. It is it is something called speech synthesis.
Whoa, okay.
So what they've done, they had they created an AI, and they captured all the inflections of Jay-Z.
Huh.
And the computer will now speak the text as if it's Jay-Z. So let me see what you guys.
I can't even lie. That's kind of funny though. That's kind of dope.
God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so.
I can't lie. That's kind of hot.
That's bananas.
That's kind of dope. That's kind of dope.
I hate it.
I know it's terrible. I know it's terrible, but man,
can you go back to it real quick?
Allow me to reintroduce myself. Genesis 1.
No, but the whole Jay-Z, like, he seems like an angel compared to what's in the middle of our right side. Hitler reads the book of Genesis. What
Oh
in the
no, yeah, I don't
world?
know about that. That's wild.
Oh,
Yeah,
what
they
type of
OD.
company is
do that.
this?
They OD with that joint.
Wir haben und die Atlas ist also an Volk Antages.
Oh, you saying it in German.
Oh, it's in German.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
says
I don't know.
in English.
It was tripping on that, James.
But I do have this though. Hold on. Do have this. I mean,
Why in the world would they even have Hitler on there?
If we're gonna do J,
Yeah, it must be a
we
non-Christian.
gotta do,
Yeah, it has to be.
B.I.G.
It has to be. Oh no.
And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of
Oh
the
my
waters.
goodness.
And God said, "Let
That's
there be
wild.
light," and there was light. And God saw the light that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness He called night.
I mean-
in the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said,
day.
"Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament and divided the waters.
I mean, on the
which
one
were
hand-
the firmament from the waters which were
Oh, my
above.
fault.
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, on the one hand, it sounds hot, but now, I mean, kind of listening to it, or kind of given the fact they throw Hitler, I feel like they're being kind of flippant. You know what I mean, with the scriptures, which is not dope. I mean, if they were just doing it for, but I mean, I don't know. It seems like they're just kind of playing games with the word. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man.
I think this tells us that if a super hot, dope rapper out nowadays, if they just switch to just rapping all just Bible verses, I wonder if they'll keep their crowd or if they'll like have a mass exodus of supporters. I'm really interested in that. Like, what do y'all think? Y'all think they'll lose their audience?
No, I think, man. Oh, go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
Go ahed. I was just saying Kanye's kind of an example.
Well, let me throw this out here. Actually, I got to get ready to slide out in a second, but I mean, I will. So, I don't know if y'all. I'm from VA, so I got to represent my peoples. But the Clips, you know what I'm saying, back in the day, I mean, they had a good run. You know what I'm saying, in hip hop. And what's interesting is, well, he used to go by the name Malice.
Right, no Malice.
One of them now he's No Malice.
Yeah.
And he's been on the Breakfast Club a couple times since he became a Christian. And it was funny because the first couple times it was kind of like, yeah, he's a Christian or whatever, but he's still kind of in the fold. But it's funny. The last time he was on, if you watched the interview on the Breakfast Club, you could tell they was like really uncomfortable because like, no, like this cat's like really a Christian, like seriously. Like he's not playing games, and it's like you could see the discomfort. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that, I mean, dark is dark and light is light, man. You know what I'm saying? If you're really gonna walk, hell is hot. Yeah.
And that's a good point. And that's a good point, man. Because what we've gotten so soft in our evangelism, man. Because I was just, and it's public, so I'm gonna say it. I was just looking at the Lecrae interview with T.I. on Expeditiously, man.
Dang, I haven't seen that joint yet.
And I was so grieved in my spirit. I was just like, man, there's no. Todd Friel said this. He's like, man, Christians should bring a sense of conviction to people. You know what I mean? Like the light should be uncomfortable to people. You know what I mean? Like it should be. We should create that type of curiosity, because typically when someone's angry, they become defensive, and then when they realize in reflection, then they realize, okay, well, maybe what he said could have been true. You know what I mean? Like it could be 3 hours later, it could be 6 hours later, it could be 2 weeks later. They kind of like, well, maybe he did bring some good points up, and I think if we at the light are actually turning a light on, it'll blind, it calls people in the dark are going to feel uncomfortable. It's like if you're in a dark room and you turn the light on, you don't automatically be like, oh, I'm just going to walk around. There's a sense of blindness and a little bit like, oh, well, wait a minute. And I think that's what we should have as Christians. But man, our lights are so dim. So many Christians' lights are so dim that there's no reason for someone to say, okay, well, I'm interested in what you're doing, but more like, oh, okay, he's a Christian, I can kind of rock with that, and that's it. You know what I mean? And so I agree with that stuff.
What's interesting is that so for me, I grew up in church. You know what I mean? And like the first Christian rap of any sort that I heard was DC Talk back in like '94. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah. I mean, at the time, that's what we had. That's what I had.
Man. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, love is a verb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, I mean, but see, now here's the thing. That see, this cat right, he's shaking his head stuff. But at
I
the
love
time,
DC Talk, man.
that's we was living off of that. That's all we had. Now, mind you, I was still listening to secular rap, throughout the week. But I would throw my DC Talk in on Sunday. You know what I mean? I was in there. You know what I mean? And then you had your T-Bones that come along, SFC, so forth, whatever. But when the crosswind would hit, I mean, there was a definite shift in CHH culture. You know what I'm saying? Because number one, it became like they set the bar for what it meant to be a hip hop ministry. You know what I'm saying? They really did. And they did it in a way where the music was dope. You know what I'm saying? They weren't, 5-10 years behind musically. You know what I'm saying? You could really see him on BET spitting with anybody and sounding dope. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, they also established what the hip hop ministry was. Now, here's the problem. This is my perspective anyway. Okay, so I think that just like anybody's been around hip hop, we're all hip hop heads, I'm sure. So there's certain themes in every genre of music. You know what I mean? Now in hip hop, particularly back in the 90s, there was this theme of when I blow up, or now that I've blown up, or I'm not gonna fall off and stuff like that. Like blowing up was a constant theme. Right. And I think that the Christian hip hop community early on inherited some of those themes, but they kind of Christianized whereas it wasn't like when I blow up, it was like when I cross over. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Christian, but when I cross over to the point where secular artists are hearing me, like now I've really arrived and I'm doing something. And that idea was kind of woven into the CHH community to where you had individuals who were like local artists, regional artists, national, international, and then like the crossover types. And depending on where you were, people evaluated how effective your ministry was. It was kind of like an unwritten scale, if you will. And I think the problem is because CHH has always had this underlying idea that we're like the little brother to the secular hip hop community. You know what I'm saying? And so therefore we evaluated our success or our status based upon, things that really were ungodly. Now here's where I'm going with this. Now I'm gonna bring it around a little bit to some apologetics. Now, if anybody has ever read St. Augustine's work, where he's talking about the godly king, God's kingdom and the kingdom of the world. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why it's escaping me right now. I'm sure you got. He's about to bring it out. He just reached.
Oh no, this is a good book. Augustine is mentor.
Okay, got you. So I don't know why it's escaping me right now, but he's talking about the world. He's talking about the kingdom of the world and the kingdom of God. And so city of God. There you go. That's what it's called. So you got the two cities, city of man and the city of God, and they're here on this earth together, but they're like oil and water. They can't mix. And so the best thing you can do is to understand where the distinctions are and navigate it that way. Yep. I think that Christian hip hop should have adopted that model in terms of understanding that we are a separate entity from worldly hip hop, and we do our thing and build up the kingdom of God. And whatever the kingdom of the world does, it does. If we can draw people out of that kingdom into the kingdom of God, then that's dope. That's what we should have done. We should have built up our kingdom rather than try to invest all of our efforts and all of our aspirations into getting behind enemy lines in their kingdom. Yeah. And so ultimately it became attractive for people. I know I'm being long-winded, but I'm very passionate about it. But I think it became attractive for individuals, and I don't want to put this on the Cray exclusively. I think it was a culture-wide issue to go that route and not necessarily appreciate the fact that when you was doing the Choir of the Fire or when you was doing this or that Christian, the Sunshine Festival, you were as successful as if you're doing, the BET Cypher. You know what I'm saying? The ultimate thing is just as long as you're doing what Christ told you to do, that's the measure of success.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, unfortunately, I think it opened the door for people to think that, okay, well, if I dim my light down, I'm not dimming my light down. I'm just being savvy in terms of how I engage people. No, really, you're tucking that cross in. That's what's really happening.
That's good, man. You preacher, bro. Hey, we need to have a CHH bodega like we do because there's so much that like I'm a Christian DJ, man. So I love talking about just this topic. I love it, and bro, you hitting it, man. You hitting it. I've had these conversations, man. I was like, I freelanced for Sports Illustrated for a little bit. And I was talking to Lecrae's agent, and we were about to have a date where I was going to interview him, but we couldn't find out a date. And we'll get to it. I mean, maybe one day, Lord willing, I'll get to the point where I interview Lecrae. But one of my first questions would be for him. I said, one of one of your most bold lines in your music is, "Lord, kill me if I don't preach the gospel." Now you don't call yourself a Christian rapper. What happened?
Ooh.
That's going to be a short interview. A real short interview.
That one might not make it past clearance, G.
All right.
Good time. Gotta go. Bye bye. So,
but in a lot of ways, though, I think at the same time, and I'm not trying to. I guess I'm just trying to think it through. I think with Lecrae, he caught a lot of the brunt of it because he was. I mean, he's not really the first person to try to do what he take the route that he took. I mean, you had people before, like whether it be Corey Red, Jafar Life, a number of guys, Rob Hodge, you know what I'm saying, who were taking that approach, you know what I'm saying, of getting out, so-called getting outside the church walls or what have you.
Yeah.
And true, very true. So there's a lot of guys who attempted to do it. It's just he's the one that's been managed to find the best, I guess, establish himself in that realm, But that being said, I think that it's really, I hate to even say it, but I just feel like it really was a CHA's culture issue. I think it was like the wheat and the tares kind of a thing, and it just kind of sprung up and got out of hand to where now I don't even recognize CHAs now. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a couple cats that I rock with, you know what I mean? But like I really like Dayton. I really like his work. You know what I'm saying? He's
the whole GOM clique is the GOM crew is dope anyways.
So I mean, it's guys like that are, and shout out to Hazakim and those guys, you know what I mean? But I think that the tenacity, as far as the culture, the tenacity is just not there. Like when we was in it, man, like it was Christ everything. You know what I mean? Even if you wasn't one of those rappers that put like scripture in every line, it was just understood that the integrity of the gospel was really what it was about.
Yes.
And just, but I don't know, man. I just, now you got cats, just they can spit and they record a couple joints on the, next thing they got a whole following in CHH, and it's like, who's discipling these
and then that's how, and then when that happens, they're like, oh no, I'm no Christian rapper. for 5 years you've been calling yourself a Christian rapper. Now you got yourself a following. You're like, no, that's not me. I'm not.
Right.
I'm just a rapper. I'm just a
he was very explicit. Like I think that he was influenced by Schaefer, by Francis Schaefer. He talked about being influenced by
Nancy Pearson.
Nancy Pearson, right?
He sure did. Yeah, is it very, very? I was about to bring that up. Very perceptive. That's true. Yeah.
Of Francis Schaefer. So I think that he was trying to do the opposite of the Augustine thing and tear down the secular sacred divide and kind of live in a more holistic way. I think the problem was like he ultimately gained so much popularity in such a fast period of time. All his mistakes were out in the open for us to see.
Right.
All of us were just like, man, what happened? I think somebody asked him or Andy Miano, like, you used to represent, like, what does 116 stand for? And instead of Romans and unashamed, it was like,
no, but dude, they changed their mission statement on their website though. Like it's a real thing. Like they're like compromising now. Like,
well, I mean,
they're going unashamed. Romans 1:16. Now they've changed their mission statement.
Even worse. I mean, I could be wrong, but I mean, even worse. I think from what I recall, like what Chris in Detroit was talking about, I think he even said that it's always been like being unashamedly a dad, and some of these secular things. I'm like, nah, it wasn't, no, it was not. And so I'm like, man, come on, bro. Like, I mean, to your point, like, no, I agree. I mean, he was in a very difficult position. I think that I'm not one of those people that believes Lecrae was just like some kind of money grubbing rapper trying to make it. I really don't believe that. I really do think that he was influenced by Nancy Pearson, who I love Nancy Pearson's work. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate her work. And I think that's probably right. And matter of fact, interesting. Now, this might get into some theology too. I know we don't have time for it, but it also kind of gets into your eschatology, because a couple of years ago I interviewed Sho Baraka. You know what I mean? And we had a dope conversation. And right at the end, I was asking him about it. I was like, does it kind of get into eschatological views in terms of whether you believe in like an amillennial view, where the church kind of gradually moves towards the millennial reign, or I mean not really, but the time of the church, so to speak, where we basically run stuff. You know what I mean? Like if that's your view, then you're going to say, okay, well, when I can go into the world and I'm just part of that work. Versus if your view is, say, premillennial, and you believe everything's just a sinking ship and you can't save it, then you're going to take a different approach to engage in these worldly systems and contexts. You know what I mean? And so I think some of it, kind of really gets into what your eschatology is and how you think the world is progressing. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I think Lecrae might be an amillennialist. I think that might be right. So, maybe that has something to do with it. But ultimately, man, I mean, it's a shame to me. I mean, I think CHH has lost its vigor. You know what I mean? For the most part, it's just nowhere near where it used to be. It's kind of sad, man. But I hate to even leave on that note. But actually, I do got to slide out, y'all. My bad. I got to roll up out of here.
That was great, bro.
Thank you so much.
Hey, we need to continue this conversation, though, man.
We will.
Let's do that, man.
We'll figure out. We'll do an all CHH.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Joint. So we'll definitely work on that. But it's 12:26, and it's about that time for us to go. So before everybody leaves, though, let us know about whatever is coming.
Oh, we're leaving now? Okay, I'll just wait. Okay.
Future projects, streams, interviews. Like, let's start with my man, Dr. Detroit. What's going on with you, sir?
What's going on? So yeah, last week I dropped my first blog, Metacognition. It's on my Facebook page on the Halloween website. It's short, but I thought it was it's something I'm passionate about. So yeah, check that out. If you haven't checked that out yet, I'm gonna go and look at the analytics to see if you did. Secondly, tomorrow morning at 11 a.m., I'm a guest at Quentin Rogers Church via Zoom. I'm going to be talking about misreading the scripture with Western eyes. Yep, that's going to be tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then next Sunday, the 31st, this week I got to pre-record my message because I'm preaching the Sunday morning sermon the next Sunday, the 31st. So nice. I got to get that put down so that I can, and then I'll share that on social media also. So yeah, that's what I got going on.
Cool. MJ, what you got?
All right. I'm going to be probably releasing 3 podcast episodes. They won't be live streams, but they'll be like audio podcasts. One of them is pertaining to the worldview of myth. So I'm going to be laying down some foundational groundwork with that. And then hopefully me and you can work out some logistics for the live stream of that, where we're going to a little bit more detail, but I'll be laying down some groundwork on that. And,
yes, sir.
The second is going to be the reliability of the Gospels. And the third is slipping my mind right now, but it'll come back to me by next Friday, and I'll let y'all know.
And what's in your immediate future, CMB the ambassador?
Yeah, just keep us in prayer, man. We're just kind of doing a slow roll open of the church and here in Dayton as well too. So shout out to Faith Life Church, love y'all. And also I have been asked to do a sermon online as well too, to be part of an online revival. So that'll be coming up here. We're recording it next Saturday, and it should be coming out by the end of June, something like that. So I'll be letting y'all know when that comes out.
And what's going on in your immediate future, Mr. Coleman?
Yeah, man, a couple things. So I've got let's see, tomorrow I will be on my man Sean Hurst's channel. I can't remember. He just, I think he changed the name. It's like martial arts. It's like MMA, apologetics or something like that. I'm just terrible. I should know. But I'll be on there tomorrow, and I'll be, I'll post a link on my Facebook and whatnot so people can, follow on, check it out. Then Monday I've got Isaiah Robertson is going to be coming through the True ID. He's going to be talking about his book that's about to come out. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. Then I will be on. Y'all might know Baron Elias Cleef. Yeah, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. But Block Huggers Ministry. I'm going to be going on his channel, and on May 30th I'll be on Marlon Wilson's channel, The Gospel Truth tag team with Vocab Malone, talking about some Hebrew Israelites. And I got some stuff coming up on my channel as well. Aside from the Isaiah Robertson interview, I've got I just spoke this past Wednesday at my church on Hebrew Israelites, slavery, and Black Muslims. So I'll be posting that video on my channel. And actually, on a fun note, I'm about to start doing some game streaming, man. I'm a gamer, man. I'm resurrecting my gamer side, and so I'm gonna start doing some game streaming where I just do I hang out and playing some video games. Cats can watch and ask questions. Kind of Q&A game hangout type of thing. So I'll be doing that. Probably will launch that next Friday or Saturday. And and so in the meantime, man, definitely just kind of stay up with me. If you feel so inclined, hit me up on patreon.com/Adam Coleman. And you'll have early access to all that stuff. And they got some articles I'm writing too. So I'm trying to pack it all in there, man.
Cool. And Mr. Featherstone, what do you have?
I just wrote a blog about Dr. Umar. So go check that out, man. I've been getting some good feedback on that. So praise the Lord. When something is just on my mind, I know that the Lord is just telling me to do it. Because it's funny because when I did the polite video, I was actually working, and I went back and forth, and I set it up, and I closed it, and I set it up and closed it. And after like the fourth time, I was like, man, I'm just going to do it because it was just in my spirit. So I started, so check that out on my page about polite. And then the blog that I have, visunited.com, about Umar. And man, that Christian Science presentation has been sitting. So I'm going to make it a live stream. In the next couple of weeks, I'll be done with my dissertation. Hopefully, I'll turn in by a week from Sunday. That's the goal. So pray for me as I do that. And I'll have a little bit more time to open up to do more live streams and videos. I'm really tackling cults again. Uncle Kenny was fun for a while, but he's boring, you know what I mean? But I really want to get into the gritty, man. I love studying and exposing cults, Christian cults. And so that's what I'm going to do. So be on the lookout for that on my page, y'all.
Nice.
I got to hear about that PhD dissertation, man. I want to know more about what that's about.
The subject is how Christianity, how conversion to Christianity in prison reduces recidivism rates.
Crucial.
Okay, all right.
As for me, Monday, big day for me. The Unseen Realm of Apologetics with Dr. Michael Heizer, May 25th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am also working on a show that's going to be on Adam's channel. We're going to revisit Riza Islam. And we're going to be doing some fact checking again. He did an interview with Nick Cannon in Cannon's class. So we're going to be grading the class. And we're going to see what we find.
You know how we do, man. When you show up for that, you got to buckle in because it's going to be something, man. So, I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think I got that with you. And then, of course, in June, we'll be having the Bodega ladies up in here.
Sir.
That's going to be fun, and just other stuff just cooking that I can't really speak on right now. So,
Every time you have those fact check videos, you should call it "Losing Subscribers" with BK Apologetics on the True ID podcast.
Yeah, I took a couple of L's, man, but I'm back now though. I recoup.
Look, your channel grew. I don't think that it. You might have lost some stragglers, but it looked like it grown. I've been watching the numbers.
Yeah, initially I lost some. And then
MJ, you pocket checking? What's going on?
Yeah, I know. Right?
I'm weird like that, bro.
He's inspired, man. He's inspired.
I mean, he's right, though, man. And it just really speaks to speak the truth, man. I'm saying no matter who is going to offend, speak the truth, man.
Absolutely. And
speaking
the truth,
stick to your guns, bro.
There you go. And with
just don't show your gun like Colin.
Right.
Hey, I showed a case. I don't know.
Don't get him in trouble. And
stick to your guns. Just don't show it.
Strike my
like, don't stick people up with your guns. Like,
right? No. Wouldn't dream of it. Oh, you gonna get saved today?
Like it or not.
You gonna see Jesus today, one way or the other.
Straight with glorious anger.
Hey, BK, I know you're trying to close. But Colin told me he gonna be in my neck of the woods. All right, Colin, we're going to the gun range, buddy.
All right, let's hit it. Let's hit it.
We need to see video of that. You know what I mean?
I'm not a bad shot. Pretty good.
Praise the Lord and pass the ammo, right?
There you go.
All right. So now, with all that being said, it is Chris Featherstone, Apologists in Detroit, MJ Jackson, Adam Coleman, CMB the Ambassador, and your boy, the BK Apologist, signing off. Peace.